Hey now, happy Monday afternoon and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Starting off the week right with yours truly, Brendan Dworzinski. That is Dan Lucero. We are here with you from 3 until 6 this afternoon. And we've got a ton to get to from around the world of sports. A very busy sports weekend has brought us to a very busy sports Monday. And we appreciate you hanging out with us throughout the duration of the show today. Some big NFL news from around the league just breaking within the last 10 minutes or so. Which players on the franchise tag got deals done? And of all the guys who entered today still on the tag, precisely 0 of them got deals done by 3 o'clock and the deadline to get a long-term extension done. A couple of these guys have not signed their franchise tags yet. So we will get to all of that coming up both in headlines in the 5 o'clock hour and bottom of this hour with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. Oh, by the way, we're still waiting on the Chris Jones contract. And oh, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins has finally found a team. He is headed to the Tennessee Titans. This is the most actual legitimate NFL news we have had since the draft.
Right?
Since then, it has pretty much been, oh, yeah, minicamp. That was cool. Okay.
An exercise in remembering some guys who maybe haven't signed yet. Yeah, it gets a little bleak there for a couple of weeks, but we can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel known as training camp.
So we will get to all of that coming up here in just a little bit. And again, Matt Verderame is going to join us at the bottom of this hour as he does every single Monday on the program. We've got a lot of Royals to touch on. We'll get to that here in just a minute. The Royals did lose the series. They got swept in Saturday's doubleheader, but had a good outing yesterday. And save for one inning with a couple of long balls, Brady Singer was awesome. And Bobby Witt was slugging this weekend. MJ Melendez slugging this weekend. A lot of good to go around in yesterday's game, so we'll touch on that for the Royals. We'll also get to some of the specifics on DeAndre Hopkins, the fact that the Chiefs were allegedly in the mix to the end, but I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and say I don't know about that one coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. The Kansas Jayhawks basketball team has lost another member of its freshman class, Marcus Adams, who reclassified up to this year's class, who flipped from UCLA to KU at the very last minute before signing, has left the program and has asked for a release from his national letter of intent. What does that mean for Kansas going forward? We will touch on that. We've got a boatload to get to from all over the sports world in our headlines today. We've got What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, of course. We'll recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. So much to get to today on 580 Sports Talk. You know we'd love for you to be involved in the show, too. You can do so on the text line. Number is 785-272-9429, or you can hop into the comment section on YouTube. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW, and the comment section is wide open. We're getting close to 300 subscribers on YouTube. Big threshold benchmark goal for us. So if you haven't subscribed to us yet on YouTube, just head to youtube.com with your Google account, YouTube account, Gmail. They're all owned by the same company. They all work on one website or the other. Just search on YouTube, Sports on 580. We're the top result in that search window. Hit subscribe, open our channel. You can check out all the old shows, all of our stuff from Big 12 Football Media Day, where Dan and Jake were last week, and, of course, today's video live stream and comment section as well. But we start today with a little baseball. And no, not banana ball. I am rocking the Savannah Bananas hat today. One of my faves. You knew the vibes were going to be good when I walked in with this morning. But the Kansas City Royals, despite losing their series with the Tampa Bay Rays this weekend, their first series back, game got rained out on Friday night, doubleheader, they get swept in both of them on Saturday, but they win yesterday. And for me, the thing that stands out, and we'll get to Brady Singer here in a moment, but the young guys who we have talked endlessly about needing to show something, I thought showed something this weekend. MJ Melendez, 4 for 12 for the weekend. That's a .333 average. Had a double, had a home run yesterday. Bobby Witt Jr., 4 for 12 for the weekend. His 4 hits, all extra base hits. 2 home runs, a triple, a double, had 4 RBIs. Now, I didn't walk it all. It was all hits he was getting on base. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. I wanted to start with Witt, and we'll get to MJ here too in a second. But this sort of continues what we saw in a lot of the month of June. Certainly the couple of weeks of July leading into the All-Star break. It really does feel like we are at a point where it's no longer maybe Witt is turning, like maybe he's turning the corner. This feels like he has actually gotten to the corner and is either around it or is in the process of getting around it, because he has been hitting the ball really well as of late. And again, if you're going to have major deficiencies in your game, there are ways you can still make up for it. We've talked about this with Nick Prado how many times? You've brought it up a bunch. That if you're going to strike out as often as he strikes out, the way to counterbalance that, drive dudes in. If you do get on base, get to second base.
Hit the ball over the fence.
Hit the ball over the fence, exactly. For Bobby Witt Jr., he does not walk at all. He, I think, has a lot of important traits, a lot of skills that are very valuable. His speed is obviously massively valuable. He's becoming a better fielder, but he doesn't get on base if he's not hitting his way on base. What is a good way to counteract that and still add more value? When you hit the ball, make sure you end up on second base every time. Make sure you end up on third. Make sure you're hitting the ball, again, over the fence. And Witt has done that more and more. He did that more and more over the weekend. That is extremely encouraging, because more so than anyone else on this roster, more so than the injured Vinny Pasquantino or Nick Prado or MJ Melendez or even any of the individual pitchers, everything in the future kind of hinges on Bobby Witt Jr. being a superstar, because that was the hype going in. You spent the number 2 overall pick on him. You were lauded for that. You've built up so much around what should be your franchise centerpiece shortstop. And if the rest of this year is just a lot of, dang, Royals lost again, that's 6 of 7, but have you seen Bobby Witt? That is a win. That is a plus. Not a unanimous plus, because you need those other guys to do something, but I am getting to a point where I am feeling, I don't know about optimistic, because I've always thought he'd be a good player, but I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about what he has done over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, starting to get results that are a little more commiserate with the batted ball profile for Bobby Witt Jr. Early in the season, when the batting average was really low, it jumped out that it wasn't because he was putting the ball in play less. In fact, he's actually cut his strikeouts a little bit this year. But it was because when he was putting the ball in play, he wasn't getting a lot of hits.
Yep.
His batting average on balls in play was uncharacteristically low. And I think we could say uncharacteristically, even though we've only got a season's worth of major league sample size. That has ticked up here in the recent days and weeks, that now his batting average on balls in play is up to 289, which is a little more palatable. It's still, it's on the low end of what you would expect, just on average, just average luck, so to speak, with regards to balls in play. Generally, Major League Baseball average around 290. So he's hovering right around the league average. In fact, his career batting average on balls in play and the Major League average on balls in play during that time period are the exact same.
Interesting.
293.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So he's getting the results you would expect on average with regards to the balls in play. We talked about his April and May, how difficult those months seemed to be, even though the power was there, the other numbers, the batting average, the on base. And like you described, on base for Bobby Witt Jr. is always going to be pretty heavily driven by his batting average, kind of like Salvador Perez in that way. So far, Bobby Witt Jr. in his major league career, and we're up over 1,000 career plate appearances now, has walked just short of 5% of the time, 4.9%. Major league average is about 8%. That is better than Salvador Perez by about 1%, but not appreciably better than Salvador Perez, to the point where, I mean, we know the drill with Salvi. He's been around over a decade now, that he is not going to stand up there and watch ball 4. It's not the kind of hitter he is. And he's been a good major league player despite that, not in spite of that, but despite that, because he hits the ball over the fence. And so for Bobby Witt Jr., that's what you want to see. You want to see the batting average tick up, but it felt in the month of June like, as the batting average was going up, because I think he hit like 290 in June. I don't have his June splits in front of me, but I think he hit about 295 in June. And when he had a good batting average month, the power dipped. He wasn't hitting the ball over the fence in June. So the question was, can he marry the results from April and May in the power department with the batting average gains realized in June? And so far in July, the answer is yes. And that's why he's ticked his season lineup to this point. He's up to a 764 OPS, on base plus slugging. That's now tops on the team, and is right now a 42-point improvement over where he sat as a rookie. So want to see Bobby Witt Jr. be a superstar? it may not happen overnight, but the linear growth I think we're starting to see, and it's starting to reflect itself again in his batting line and his results.
And just to back up that point, from the first game of the year was in March, but April through June, the best batting average in a month for Bobby Witt Jr. was in the month of June. He hit 280 in June. That's really good. His slugging percentage was 380 in June. For a guy with those kind of tools, that's got to be higher. That absolutely has got to be higher. That was his lowest through the first 3 months of the season. Now in July, he's been tearing the cover off the ball. 370 average, 804 slug. That's a nearly 1,200 OPS through 12 games in the month. Obviously, that's not entirely sustainable, but that is what we're talking about here. He doesn't have to hit 370 to be an effective player. He doesn't have to be Luis Arise, who's hitting singles. Like, that is what Arise is going to do. Maybe he'll hit a couple doubles here and there. That's a singles hitter. You've got to hit a ton of them often to be a maximum value player with that kind of profile. Witt doesn't profile like that. I guess he could be if he hit 370. No one's going to complain, but he can be effective, worthwhile, valuable, etc. without, he doesn't even have to hit 300. If you could hit somewhere in the 270s, I think most people would be happy because you're expecting long-term, you're going to have that power and you're going to have that base stealing prowess as well.
Yeah, if he hits 270, 280, he's a really good player. Those seasons where he hits 300, and I think he's got the capability to do that. One, because of the exit velocities. Two, because of his speed. His speed is going to buy him some infield hits that'll drive that batting average up. In the years in which he hits 300, that's a superstar player. So I'm not holding out a ton of hope that he's going to turn into, like, I don't know. There's not really a good analog of Royals players who draw a lot of walks. I'm not expecting him to have the batting profile of Vinny Pasquantino, where, walk as much as you strike out and walk above league average. I don't think that's going to happen for Bobby Witt Jr., but he can be a really good player even without doing that if he's still keeping the strikeouts to a minimum and he's making the kind of loud contact we saw him make over the weekend. It was good to see that from Bobby Witt Jr., no question. It was good to see MJ Melendez, that power to the big part of the park with his home run and his double yesterday. But can I talk about the most interesting thing we saw this weekend?
Absolutely.
I know you touched on Brady Singer, and a tip of the cap to Brady Singer for going into the 8th inning, the day after a doubleheader, a day after you kind of tax the bullpen by playing 2 games in one. Brady Singer works 8 innings, 7 shutout innings. I know he gave up the 2 home runs in the 8th, but with a 7-run lead, I don't care that he gave up 4 runs in the 8th inning.
Okay.
That's one less frame that the bullpen didn't have to pick up yesterday. And that's helpful. That's what you want your number one starter to do. This is not me saying that Brady Singer in one fell swoop has become a number one starter, but he is certainly the Royals' number one starter. And you want your number one starter to get you deep into ball games like that. And that's what Brady Singer did. He was impressive. He worked fast. Yesterday's game took less than 2 hours.
An hour 54.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He got into a really good groove yesterday. I don't mind that he threw some cookies in the 8th inning that got crushed. I really don't. You're working with a 7-run lead. Like, I hate to sound like old-timey baseball guy, but like Jack Morris used to do that all the time. Like, I will trade a couple of runs here in this late inning because I'm just trying to get guys out because we got a big enough lead, and it's more important that I get these 3 outs than they be, clean outs. So I'm not fussed about the home runs in the 8th.
Fair enough.
I thought it was another step forward for him. I want to talk about the 2 kids who threw yesterday.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about Alec Marsh. I want to talk about Cole Reagans. I'll start with Marsh. Alec Marsh.
This was Saturday?
Yes, Saturday. Okay. Yes. In the doubleheader. Saturday. Alec Marsh, 6 innings, 11 strikeouts. The Royals do not have a whole lot of guys who have taken starts this year for them who could strike out 11 guys in 6 innings. They've got, of their 5 most frequent starting pitchers this year, the 5 guys who started the most games for them. That's Singer, Lyles, Greinke, Lynch, and still Brad Keller, if you can believe that. Lynch has started 8 games. That's 5th most on the team. Strikeout per 9 ratios are 7, 6.5, 6, a hair under 6, and 6.5. Striking out 11 in 6 innings is substantially more than striking out 6.5 per 9. So that's an eyebrow raiser right there. Alec Marsh, 11 strikeouts in 6 innings, lots of swings and misses, did give up the 2 home runs and took the loss. Got to rein in the long ball a little bit, but showing some swing and miss stuff and some strikeout potential. And then Cole Reagans makes his Royals debut in the nightcap on Saturday. He's the piece that came over from the Rangers. And when the Royals made that trade, the Aroldis Chapman deal just a couple of weeks ago, and sent Chapman to the Rangers, and Cole Reagans was, I don't know if you'd call him the headline piece, but he was the piece that if you saw those two names next to each other, if you had heard of any of them, you had heard of Cole Reagans.
He was the non-teenager.
Right. He was somebody with big league experience at the AAA level, former first-round pick. And I thought to myself, gosh, this just feels like every other trade the Royals have made where they prioritized closeness to the big leagues over ceiling. And then Cole Reagans went out there and threw 499-mile-an-hour fastballs on Saturday night. Speaking of things that, do I need to ask if Brady Singer, Jordan Lyles, Zach Greinke, Daniel Lynch, and Brad Keller have done that this year? I don't need to ask that question. You know what the answer is. So between those two, and Reagans being left-handed makes him even more intriguing in that regard. Between Marsh and Reagans on Saturday, we saw two Royals starting pitchers do things that we have not seen Royals starting pitchers do all that frequently, not just this year, at all this year, but not real frequently in recent seasons. I was trying to think of the last time a Royals starting pitcher struck out 11 in 6 innings. Do you have to go back to Nate Carnes? Do you have to go back to Danny Duffy? Like, we're going back a ways.
Yeah.
It's not something that this group of starting pitchers has been able to do. So, color me intrigued. Now, again, not saying these guys one fell swoop are future aces. Marsh did give up the 2 home runs. Reagans did walk 2 and only struck out 3 in his 5 innings of work. And just because you throw hard doesn't mean you're destined for success. I seem to recall Jorge Lopez threw really hard when the Royals acquired him as a trade piece in the Mike Moustakas deal back in 2018. But it is intriguing to see something different, something tantalizing, something interesting from Royals starting pitching. And even though both of those games ended up in the loss column for the Royals against a really good Tampa Bay team, a great Tampa Bay team, it was something to like about that Saturday sweep for sure.
For comparison's sake, guy who I've sung the praises of a lot in recent weeks is Daniel Lynch. I think he's pitched very well. His last 4 starts, in fact, so Detroit, Tampa, the Dodgers, and the Guardians, in those 4 starts, they got an ERA of 2.63. He's been very good. It has taken him 24 innings to strike out 11 batters. And Alec Marsh did it in 6 innings this weekend. So it's just been a long time, and I think you were trying to illustrate this. It's been a long time since a Royals starting pitcher, or frankly, a lot of relievers, have had overpowering stuff. And that's kind of what what's the phrase here? Like, the flavor of the week in Major League pitching is having overpowering stuff. We always talk about the guys who throw 98 with movement. You don't need that, but you need to be able to miss bats. You need to get guys to whiff. And the Royals have not had a lot of that. So to have any sort of glimmer of, hey, look, at least we've got a couple of guys who, even if they're not super successful, they can do that. That is encouraging, because otherwise you just have a lot of guys who are trying to locate and have really struggled to locate to a degree. Speaking of, and I feel bad picking on the guy, at this point, barring injury, would you be surprised if we didn't see Brad Keller again this year? He went 1/3 of an inning, multiple walks, 6 earned runs at Omaha this weekend in relief.
Yeah, 6 appearances for AAA Omaha for Brad Keller, and he has walked 17 batters in 6 innings. That's like,
look, man, he's going to be a free agent in 3 months, 2 months.
If they need to make 40-man room, I'm not going to be surprised if he's a casualty. I'm really not. That's, again, I hate to bring it up. I hate to say it. I hate to raise this specter, but that's Steve Blass, Rick Ankiel range.
I mean, how do you not say yips at this point? Like, how do you not bring that up? For his first 3 seasons, 18, 19, 20, he was never going to be Greg Maddux, but he looked like at least a serviceable, regular, trust him every 5 days kind of starter. 2020, after he came back from his early COVID diagnosis, he was freaking awesome. And since then, it has been downhill. And this year is so, even for a guy who's never had great command, it is so out of character for it to be this bad. And you feel for him, because by all accounts, he's a great dude. The clubhouse guys love him. Really nice guy. and has had success in this league, but my God, I mean, it's unplayable. And I would not be surprised. I'm with you. If they need to make room on the 40-man, if they any sort of roster move, I would not be surprised if he's the one to go. And I hope he finds success somewhere, but good Lord, that has been pretty darn bleak. Overall, though, I mean, if you take a look at this weekend and you're saying the wins and losses don't matter because you know the team is bad, you know you're not contending, look at the pieces that matter and whether or not you're seeing positive strides from them. This was a successful weekend, and you're not going to be upset about losing a series to the Rays anyway. They're the best team in baseball.
Best team in the American League at any rate.
Yeah.
I think the Braves have surpassed them record-wise. But
the Braves lost a series to the White Sox this weekend.
Yeah, in Atlanta. That was weird. When you have half your roster have to work during All-Star weekend, maybe the White Sox were a little more refreshed, tanned, rested, and ready for the weekend than the Braves were having to do all that All-Star stuff. But no, there were definitely some good things for the Royals this weekend. No question about it. Like Reagan's is firmly on my radar now. Marsh, I think we're 3 starts in, and I want to see more. Like I want to see what shape this takes because again, the Royals don't have guys who have done what Marsh and Reagan just went and did in the big leagues. I mean, we're not talking about, he struck out 11 in 6 innings at Northwest Arkansas. Now he went and did that against the Tampa Bay Rays. Like, if you can do that, you didn't do that by accident. Like, there's something there. You're throwing 99-mile-an-hour fastballs. Let's see if we can rein those in for Cole Reagans. Yeah, definitely want to see more of those guys. Definitely want to continue to follow them with some interest. They landed firmly on the radar with their work this weekend.
We will preview Game 1 of the Royals series with the Tigers coming up later on this afternoon. Right now, though, we are due a break. On the other side of it, we'll recap the weekend with the good, the bad, and the ugly. Plus, we'll talk to Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated later this hour, all about the NFL, right here on 580 Sports Talk. It was a jam-packed full weekend, and we'll break it all down here on 580 Sports Talk with the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good for me, Dan, was this weekend's Kansas Shrine Bowl out in Hayes. We were there for that. The game was not aired here on 580, but we had it across the state on a handful of different stations. And man, what a game. The last couple of years we were saying, and it's always fun. It is always fun to be there, and All-Star games are fun. And obviously they do so much good work for such a great cause at the Shrine Bowl. But this year's game had a different energy about it. I thought the coaches were really aggressive. I thought the players were really into it. It was a thrilling game from start to finish. And the West comes away with a 1-point win. Really respect the East going for 2 late instead of playing for the tie game, because we had a tie last year, and that's enough for me. I do not need another Shrine Bowl tie in my lifetime. So I loved that. And a couple of Washburn Ichabods were the most outstanding players. Keller Hurla for the East, Keenan Schartz of Manhattan for the West. In fact, a bunch of Washburn players, future Washburn players in the game. Just a really fun weekend. And I'll say this just about one player in particular, and I just mentioned his name, and so many guys stood out who are going to go play college football or might be done with their high school careers or what have you. Keller Hurla from St. Mary's won a state title for the Bears in Class 1A this past fall, was the East most outstanding player. I don't know if he's going to start at quarterback for Washburn, if he's going to play a different position, if he'll be a backup, whatever. I would want that dude on my team any day. That is a gamer. And same for Keenan Schartz from Manhattan, another state champ who won the West Most Outstanding Player Award. Those dudes are gamers, and I would take them in a heartbeat on my team. Holy cow, those kids play hard.
Yeah, Washburn's getting a pair of studs, pair of ball players. And yeah, if you're choosing sides, I'm not sure I care what the sport is. I'm not sure it matters if they've played it before or not. Like, give me those two.
Yeah.
I think they'll figure it out.
Keller Hurla, by the way, I only knew about 4 of these. He played 5 sports during his 4 years at St. Mary's. He spent time golfing, playing track, baseball, basketball, and football, and was all state in 2 of them. That's preposterous. Utterly unreal. So shout out to all the guys who had an incredible weekend at the Shrine Bowl, and for all the money raised too. Just absolutely wonderful for a great cause.
My good from the weekend, if you root for a bad baseball team, as many of you who are Royals fans do, as I do as a Colorado Rockies fan, you got to take your wins where you can get them. Beating the Yankees 2 out of 3 over the weekend certainly qualifies for my beloved Rockies. Walked them off in extra innings in hilarious fashion yesterday. In case you missed the Yes Network TV clip, broadcaster John Flaherty was in the middle of explaining how Rockies infielder Alan Trejo had yet to homer in 120 at-bats this season, right as Trejo deposited a pitch into the left field seats to walk off the rubber game in an 8-7 11-inning win for the Rockies. Extremely funny, extremely enjoyable. I got to enjoy the exploits of my baseball team this weekend. That is not common, so that is my good.
Believe it or not, that exact moment is my bad. And not because of the team that won. I was very happy for you. I'm not out here rooting for the Yankees. I know Royals fans certainly aren't rooting for the Yankees. So I was very cool to see the Rockies do that. That was my bad, the Yes Network with the all-time bad announcers jinx, because nobody wants to be in that spot. I could not tell you how many times I've said, oh, so-and-so has hit 18 straight free throws. Clank. Oh, man, he's perfect on field goals for the season. Doink. It happens to everybody who does this for a living, who does play-by-play, sports talk right before a big moment, whatever. Very lonely feeling. Does not feel great. So I do feel for him.
I have consciously, over the years doing basketball play-by-play, avoided saying that a player is perfect from the free throw line until after their trip to the free throw line. I will wait until they miss and say, well, that's his first miss in 7 tries tonight. Or, they make both free throws, and now she's 6 of 6 from the line here in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I know the power that we have. I was joking with my wife about, and Abby says, do you guys do it on purpose sometimes? Do you think announcers do it on purpose? I say, no, I don't believe that. I believe that we wield the power responsibly.
Do you remember when Jim Nance did it on Thanksgiving Day? And he was so upset. He was like mad after it happened. So yes, it has happened to all of us. So from an emotional standpoint, that was my bad.
My bad. Apparently, Joel Embiid is ready to ask out of Philadelphia. If you can read the tea leaves of his latest comments, he said, quote, I just want to win a championship, whatever it takes. This was an interview at the Uninterrupted Sports Film Festival. He was speaking Thursday, but the comments were only recently released publicly. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or anywhere else. I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. That sounds like running from the grind to me. This Shell MVP, I'll ask again for about the millionth time. This Shell MVP.
I will tell you, if I had to guess, when Joel Embiid said that there were two, because he has always said he really appreciates Philadelphia, appreciated that the Sixers stuck by him when he was hurt a ton early in his career, barely played his first 3 seasons. He is thinking about the Miami Heat. I guarantee you he is thinking about the Miami Heat because he and Jimmy Butler are tight. Joel Embiid was not happy that the Sixers picked Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler was also not happy that the Sixers picked Ben Simmons over him. He loves Joel Embiid. Embiid loves him. Joel probably sees Damian Lillard trying to fight his way to Miami and thinks, well, damn.
Well,
what about me?
And James Harden wants to leave. I get things are not rosy in Philadelphia, but also they've signed 4 backup centers this offseason. They a lot of help.
Yeah. That's a lot of backup centers.
A lot of backup centers.
My ugly, I didn't have one until I saw that Jeff Passan got hit by a falling branch today.
Yeah.
And broke his back.
Broken vertebrae for the ESPN MLB reporter who, of course, lives in the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
That's awful. That was my ugly, too. Goodness. It was obviously very dangerous storms rolled through here and other parts of Kansas on Friday, and he was clearing some branches and got hit by one, and very fortunate that it wasn't a worse outcome. So certainly wishing Jeff Passan well, but that's awful.
Yeah, very, very scary situation. That does it for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've got a lot of NFL news coming up on the other side of this break, though. Finally, some NFL news. We'll break it down with Matt Verderame here on 580 Sports Talk.
Matt?
You just don't understand football, Marge.
Matt.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory. last forever.
How can you not be romantic about football, man?
Matt Verderame joins us on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt covers the National Football League for Sports Illustrated. You can find his work in the magazine at SI.com, and you can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, how excited are you that we have actual, real, legitimate NFL news this week?
Excited. I took about a month off to get charged up for it, but now I'm ready. Now I'm ready from this moment until about May 1st. And then I'm going to need another month. But until then, we're good to go.
Hell yeah. Well, we've got a ton to get to, a bunch of news from the weekend, a bunch of news today as well. We'll get to some of the decisions or non-decisions on the franchise tag deadline. But first and foremost, it was reported yesterday. It has been effectively confirmed by DeAndre Hopkins. He is headed to the Tennessee Titans. Reports are in that it is a 2-year deal worth $26 million. I'm not exactly sure what the guarantee is. I know there are incentives baked in as well. I think this answer is probably pretty obvious, Matt, but from your perspective, from what you have heard, what is the reason he ended up choosing Tennessee?
Because they were going to give him 2 years and nobody else would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty much it. The second I saw 2 years, my immediate thought was, well, Kansas City and Buffalo, there was no way. That wasn't happening. I mean, there was no way. The Chiefs weren't going to pay Tyreek Hill multiple years in storage. They weren't going to do it for DeAndre Hopkins. If that was going to happen, that was going to be a 1-year deal. The Bills are in a little bit of a cap crisis next year. They were not going to go 2 years. I thought the Patriots, just considering where they are in the development of Mac Jones and Belichick being 70, I thought maybe they would have just said, you know what, it's worth the risk. But they apparently weren't willing to do it either. And if you're Tennessee, you know what? I'm very curious to see the structure of the deal and the guarantee, because it could be one of these things. It's like a 1-year deal plus an option, basically. But if you're Tennessee, you are so desperate for a receiver that you probably just said, you know what? Look, if he's good this year and the team's not, trade him. Just trade him after this year. And if the team is good and he's excellent, then great. Then all the better. Then it works out. But I think for Tennessee, there are ways to get out of it if this thing doesn't go well. Whether he doesn't play well or the team doesn't play well, there's something we should.
And just looking at the depth chart, Matt, for the Titans, and, you know, DeAndre Hopkins probably right now is not as good as he was at his peak a few years back, you know, that first year with the Cardinals, later years with the Texans. But this move, I think, takes Tennessee from one of the 3 or 4 worst receiver rooms to at least a respectable one, because it's a lot nicer to have DeAndre Hopkins as your 1, Treylon Burks as your 2, than Burks as your 1 and Nick Westbrook-Akine as your 2.
Yeah, that's not going to work. So, I mean, and Okonkwo is actually a good young tight end. So now, like, they have some weapons. The question I have with Tennessee is the same question I have every year with Tennessee. Can Tannehill utilize the weaponry to make the Titans a legitimate threat? Obviously, a couple of years ago, well, now a little more than a couple of years ago, 2019, they got the AFC title game, made the playoffs a few more years. But they've always had an issue getting explosive plays on offense. It's always had to be Henry, and then you play off of that. And this is a team that, in recent seasons, has had A.J. Brown, had Corey Davis at his peak. Like, they've had players. I mean, this isn't a group you looked at and just went, oh, they've had nobody. They've had players. They've struggled to get explosive plays. I also look at the offensive line this year. This is a group that is a brand new group. I mean, they bring in Peter Skoronski, first-round pick. They bring in Andre Dillard, who was a former first-round pick in Philadelphia. So they're going to really be trying to find themselves up front. I don't think this moves the needle in terms of what I think of the Titans. I thought they were about a 7 or an 8 win team before the move. That's exactly what I think they are now. But he certainly does make them better on the prep.
The other team that hosted high-profile, I should note, high-profile hosting, DeAndre Hopkins, was the New England Patriots. And I think they, too, could definitely use some receiver help, and especially in a year where they've really got to figure out, is Mac Jones the guy or is he just a guy? Are you surprised that they likely also didn't offer a second year knowing how weak that receiver room is?
Yeah, like I said, I think if you're New England, you're the one team probably should have considered going 2 years. I don't think Buffalo or Kansas City should have done that. I don't. I don't blame those two teams. I know you can say, well, the Chiefs need a receiver. Look, the Chiefs are going to throw for 5,000 yards and all this up, right? I'm not. If I'm the Chiefs, I don't even care about that. As long as he has time, it's over. But for New England, read the room. Look at the division. you're not better than any of those teams. The Jets, while they have variance to them because a lot of new pieces, of course, being number one being the quarterback, they're better. They're good. The Jets should win 10-plus games. The Dolphins, if Tua is healthy, Dolphins are really talented. And obviously you have Buffalo sitting there, who's won the division the last 3 years. New England, with that offense right now, Stevenson's a good back. You got Gesicki and Henry at tight end. Like, okay, it's not overwhelming, but it's solid. Your receiver room right now is Devontae Parker, who for reasons I'll never understand, you paid over $30 million to on a new contract. And Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a good player. But Juju Smith-Schuster is not a number one receiver. I mean, last year he was very good for Kansas City, but he was in the number 2 role. And he was playing with Patrick Mahomes. Now he's going to be in the number 1 role, and he's going to be playing with Mac Jones. That's a far different situation. If they had added Hopkins, you could have then at least looked at that and went, okay, they've got some real punch on the outside now. Schuster slides down to that 2 role like he played in KC. I think it's just going to be very hard. I think New England's defense is going to be excellent, but they're going to have to win games like 20-17, 21-19. I just don't think that offense is going to have a whole lot of punch.
Our guest is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Monday at this time to talk all things NFL here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt's work on the website, si.com, in the magazine as well. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, the other big piece of business that got done just prior to the weekend was New York Jets extending defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. A lot of people figured that would be a prelude, and not a very lengthy prelude, towards Chris Jones getting an extension done with the Kansas City Chiefs. That is not yet done, although certainly the parameters are in place after Williams signing the deal. Are you a little bit surprised that it isn't done yet, or is it all kind of procedural? You think it gets done before training camp with Jones?
I'm not surprised in the sense that these things sometimes take on a weird timetable. And I know because I've talked to people in the league and GMs who have done many of these deals who will tell you these deals can come together in an hour. And they really can. Like sometimes these deals can, they can get stuck because of language or structure or the way the guarantee's laid out or a bonus. And maybe you're stuck on that for a little while, and all of a sudden you sit down and go, okay, look, we'll give you $5 more million to signing. You're going to have to give a little bit on the 3rd year and the guarantees. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we're willing to do that. Okay, now we're done. I mean, that could have been something you've been stuck on for 3 weeks. So I'm not surprised. I firmly believe they'll get this done. I mean, the Chiefs privately and publicly will tell you how much they know they need Chris Jones and how important he is to the team. Jones has been extremely public about the fact he doesn't want to go anywhere else. And I think all these deals, not just the Quinnen Williams deal, but all the other ones too. I mean, that we've seen this offseason at that position, Deron Payne, Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrence, they all have been pretty beneficial to Kansas City, quite honestly. I mean, none of these guys really moved the market where it went from, 20, 21 to 29 or something. I mean, it went just kind of incrementally. And for Jones, I mean, $25 million, I don't think anybody came into this offseason thinking he was going to get less than $25 million a year. So if you're the Chiefs, even if he's sitting there at 27, okay, so you attack a little bit on the back end, maybe you give a little bit more of a guarantee in the 3rd year and you call it a day. I think in the end, if you're Kansas City, he's one of the rare guys. You just pay him into his early 30s. And if you have 1 year you got to live with on the back end, fine. But frankly, with the way he's played, there's no reason to think he's going to slow down anytime soon.
The NFL's franchise tag signing deadline was today. There were 3 prominent running backs who were franchise tagged by their respective teams: Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard. None of them got new contracts, and now the question becomes whether or not they'll sign their tenders and report to camp. But with those 3, I mean, Jacobs, outstanding last year. Saquon Barkley's one of the best backs in the league. Tony Pollard's terrific. With those 3 not getting long-term contracts, with players with the track record of Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott still on the block, still on the market as free agents, Joe Mixon had to take a pay cut over the weekend so that he could be back with the Bengals in 2023. I would ask where the market for running backs goes from here, but maybe the question is better phrased as, is there a market for running backs?
No, there's not. And the reality is, Austin Eckler's talked about how he's annoyed that he didn't get a new deal. Jonathan Taylor tweeted out one word today. Wow, he is up for a new deal after this year. Unless you are Adrian Peterson in your prime, you're Emmitt Smith in your prime, you're Barry Sanders, you're just not getting paid. You're not getting paid. Because teams look at that position and just say, that's fine, we can replace you. We get 90% of you. I guarantee you with the Chiefs, Pacheco, you get 3 more years out of him, unless he's unbelievable, probably not paying him. You can't. You got other guys you got to pay. It's not an indictment of Pacheco, but I'm just using him, of course, as an example. He was a huge part of their Super Bowl run. He got $6 million a year to go to Carolina. The Eagles didn't care. They went out and they just said, that's fine. We'll go out and we'll get a couple guys, get DeAndre Swift, and we'll get Rashad Penny, and that's fine. And we'll rush for 5 yards of carry behind that offensive line. I thought the Giants might have ended up caving to Barkley because you've just got to do something to make that Daniel Jones deal not look like an atrocity. And I feel like without Barkley, forget it. They can't move the football. Jacobs is fascinating in the sense he's only even getting the tag this year because they initially declined his 5th-year option. I mean, they could have had him under contract this year, and they declined the option. And so now all of a sudden, you're sitting there looking at, hey, you got to pay him. And they said, no, we're not going to pay him, and that's fine. He's going to sit out now for as long as he wants to the summer. Pollard, it makes sense to me. Look, you know what? He's never been the lead feature back. They want to see how it plays out. That's fine. No issue with that. But I think if you're the Giants, that's the one. I think you can make a real case. Like that guy is so important in what you do. You kind of just pay him and you live with it. Jacobs, you could make the same argument except for the fact the Giants are a good team. I think the Raiders are a full-down tear-down by this time next year.
Final couple of minutes with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. You can find Matt's work both in Sports Illustrated and at SI.com. To continue the point about running backs, Matt, I know you just listed a few guys who were, are Hall of Famers. Adrian Peterson's the best running back of a generation, Barry Sanders, all-time great, etc. Right now in the NFL, where is the line? Like, what is the threshold for guy who is good enough that you would think about paying, like even consider paying a second contract? I would put Saquon above that line. I think he's that good. Christian McCaffrey has in recent years gotten the big payday, but I think Christian McCaffrey is even better than just being a great running back. I think he's one of the best offensive playmakers in the league. But, he theoretically, when he turns 30, you could move him to the slot and he could probably extend his career for 5 years. So where is the line right now of running backs who have a legit argument for getting that second contract, knowing how the NFL values the position?
I think you've got to be a first or second team All-Pro, or you have no shot. Because being a Pro Bowl running back means nothing. Nobody cares. I mean, the Pro Bowl's to the point that, with due respect to him, Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl last year. Okay, so nobody cares. McCaffrey, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, his value is not the fact that he runs the ball well. His value is that he's a 1,000-yard receiver. If I were a coach in college and I had a running back with designs of being a pro, I would tell him to stop worrying about which gap to hit and get on the jugs machine and catch the ball nonstop. Because I think that's where this position's going. You're going to have to find a guy who can just catch the ball. I mean, the old, the Roger Craigs of the world, the Marshall Falks of the world, guys who, hey, can you also give me 70 receptions? Because if you can give me that, that really helps me. The problem is just a lot of the guys in the league right now, that hasn't happened yet. Some of them can. So Eckler's a phenomenal example. And Eckler, while he's not going to get extended now, he's already on a second deal. If you can't do that, if you can't block, that's another thing, by the way. If I was a guy coming out of college, block. Learn how to block. Because if you can't play in the passing game, you're useless. You're useless. I don't care how well you run the ball. You're great on a rookie deal. You got a lot of use then. But once you get to 27, 28, these teams are just going to say, look, we'll throw 3 or 4 darts at undrafted guys, at rookies in the draft, maybe bring in a vet on a 1-year deal, a cheap deal. And we'll just let those guys fight it out and figure it out. And we're not going to pay you $15 million a year. And I think right now that's what the running back market is seeing. It's frustrating. I feel for him. I really do, because it really isn't fair in a lot of ways. But the game is just trending that direction right now.
Matt Verderame covers the whole National Football League for Sports Illustrated. You can find his writing in the magazine at SI.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. He joins us every Monday here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for hopping on with us as always. Finally got some real NFL news. Training camp is right around the corner. We'll talk to you next week to get ready for it.
Sounds good.
That is Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. Awesome insight into everything going on in the NFL. And we'll talk more about the franchise tag deadline coming up in headlines today. What is going to happen to Pollard, to Jacobs, to Barkley? We'll get to all that. We'll also talk a little bit more about DeAndre Hopkins and how interested the Chiefs really were in him coming up next hour. We'll also get to what is wrong with you and another roster change for Kansas basketball, losing a member of its highly touted freshman class. What does that mean for the Jayhawks going forward? We'll get to all that, your texts, and your comments on YouTube coming up after the news in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk just getting started. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero here with you. As we start this 4 o'clock hour, big thanks as always to Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated for joining us. If you missed our chat with Matt about all things NFL, head to our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcast tab and click on 580 Sports Talk. That is where you will find the hour-by-hour podcast version of the show. You can listen back already to the whole first hour of the program, or you can just go rewind the live stream on YouTube. That's right. It doesn't just have to be live right up to the minute. You can go back, rewind, check out our back catalog, and, of course, watch live and hang out in the comment section. That's at our YouTube channel called Sports on 580 WIBW. You don't even have to type the full name in if you go to YouTube. Just search Sports on 580. Boom, that's enough. We will be the top result for you. Here in this second hour of the show, we've got more NFL to get to, specifically the DeAndre Hopkins deal with the Tennessee Titans. We'll talk about some KU basketball, another roster change. One of the 10 best recruiting classes in the country has now been halved, and we're not even to boot camp yet for Jayhawks basketball. And we've got today's What Is Wrong With You, 2 brand new stories to open up the week in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. We're still taking your texts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. YouTube comment section can be found, again, at our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW, attached to today's video live stream. I think the Titans made sense from the very beginning for DeAndre Hopkins. They are going to go through a period of change either this year or next year, I think. I believe this is it for Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. Had they moved up and taken either C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, or even gotten Anthony Richardson, this year may have been the change for the Tennessee Titans. Ryan Tannehill might not even be starting as is. Instead, they're able to wait till round 2 and they get Will Jeans from Kentucky. Don't know what his profile looks like. Levis is his name, Levi's jeans. You get the joke. Don't know exactly what his profile looks like long term, but I imagine there is going to be a change in the near future in the quarterback's room with Tennessee. They've still got Derrick Henry. They have a brand new, completely unproven, and the returning pieces are bad offensive line. I like Peter Skoronski, the Northwestern product they drafted. The other guy who Matt mentioned last hour, who they added, Andre Dillard, former Philadelphia Eagle. There's a reason why a former first-round pick was happily let go by the Eagles. He was not good. He was replaced by a guy, Dan, who had never played American football before. He was a rugby player.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Jordan Mailata is really good now that he does play football.
Yeah, he earned that big contract he got. But yeah, you may remember Andre Dillard from not making an impact in the Super Bowl because he didn't play because he got benched.
Right. So you've got major questions there. Their defense has Jeffrey Simmons, who's awesome. They've got some good defensive backs that I like. Are they good enough to carry that team to the playoffs? I kind of doubt it. And they had nobody at receiver. I mean, their receiver room was just trash. So that one made sense from the very beginning, and they paid him the most money.
$13 million a year?
Yeah.
2 years, 26.
And look, if I was New England and I needed proof right now whether or not Mac Jones is good enough to be my long-term starting quarterback, I probably would have made sure I won that bidding war. But lo and behold, I really can't be surprised that he ended up in Tennessee. It was a perfect fit. It's right up to the start of training camp, so he didn't have to do any mini camp or, frankly, any media sessions or anything. He could control his own narrative through Twitter, essentially, and Instagram all offseason. And I think, all in all, this makes a lot of sense. The Titans got better, even if it doesn't change their playoff trajectory. And Hopkins got paid. The only thing I will say is if you are a player and you are going to call out, you're going to say, I want to play for an elite quarterback. That's why people attach to the Chiefs and the Bills immediately. And I want to have a chance at a Super Bowl. Again, people attaching the Chiefs and the Bills immediately. And then you end up taking the deal for the biggest money. That is fine. Go make your money. Like 31 years old, you're probably not playing past 35, 36 if you're a player like DeAndre Hopkins. Get paid as much money as you can. I will never fault the guy for that. But then he tweeted, I've always had haters. Now I've got even more. Bro, you lied. Like, you came out and lied. Let's be realistic about this.
There are people who say, well, he couldn't come out and just say, I'm taking the biggest bag because this is my last payday and I want to make sure it's as big as possible. Like, if he'd said that, he would have been, dragged through the mud and the media would have killed him for it. I wouldn't have killed him for that. I would have appreciated the honesty.
It's a job.
Yes. It's a job that you don't get to do for very long. And you should get paid as much as you can while you can. That is, there are some jobs, any job, I'm not going to criticize anybody for taking the most money they can possibly get, but certainly one where your lifespan working in the job is 10 years if you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 years if you're average. So, yeah, I wouldn't have hated on DeAndre Hopkins if he said right out, hey, look, man, it'd be great to go and win a ring because I don't have one. It'd be awesome to play with a quarterback the caliber of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or whoever. But, man, I got one more contract left in me. I'm making sure it's fat.
Go ring chase when you're on the tail end of your career. Because I think Hopkins can still go. And since he is going to be option 1 and probably sometimes option 2 in the passing game for Tennessee, he can still get 1,000 yards this year for sure.
Well, yeah, I think if we learned anything about Hopkins last season when he came back from his PED suspension with the Cardinals, it was that no matter who the quarterback was, Hopkins could get the ball. He was able to haul in a lot of passes in a huge target share as the focal point of that miserable, wretched Cardinals offense. He's got Trace McSorley and David Blau throwing in the ball, but he's still, 9 catches, 100 yards every week.
Yep.
Like clockwork. So I am a little more skeptical about exactly how much is left in the tank. I don't think he's a 1,400-yard guy. I think the Titans think he's going to put them over the top or rejuvenate Ryan Tannehill or be the guy that sparks Malik Willis or Will Levis and makes them in the start. Boy, you talk about a mid-off, that quarterback battle.
Yikes. Big yikes.
Yeah, it's not enticing. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's prime DeAndre Hopkins, but he can handle a workload and a target share that is going to be available for him in Tennessee in a way that I don't know that it was going to be available in New England. I don't know. Certainly wasn't going to be available in Kansas City or Buffalo. He's going to get the ball a lot, and he's going to maybe have a chance to compile enough to get somebody else given $13 or so million in 2 years.
He has played 10 years in the league. Last year was his 5th best year in terms of yards per game. He had 64 catches and 717 yards in just 9 games. Missed 2 due to injury, missed 6 due to the suspension. He's still a good player. He can still go. And again, Colt McCoy and Trace McSorley and John Skelton and John Beck were throwing him passes last year. Who was that? Drew Stanton. Every bad Cardinals quarterback of recent memory was throwing him the ball last year, and he still averaged almost 80 yards a game. You heard Matt say he doesn't think this makes the Titans any better as a whole. I don't really think they're going to be very good. They'll probably fight for that division, but that division sucks.
Yeah, why can't they win that division? I guess would be my question.
That's fair.
They're well coached.
Mm-hmm.
So are the Jaguars. Jaguars have better offensive weapons. But the Titans always kind of seem to be more competitive than you expect them to be. Why can't they go 9-8 and win the South?
Vrabel is a superstar coach. I genuinely think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. The reason why I would still give them an outside chance to win, because Jacksonville has the best offense in that division by light years. Lawrence, Etienne, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. That's a good offense. Let's play a game. Can you name a Jacksonville Jaguars defensive player?
Josh Allen.
Yes, the other Josh Allen. Their starting defensive line. They run a 3-4 base.
Yeah.
Folorunsu Fatakasi.
That's not a real person.
That is indeed a real person. Devon Hamilton.
Sure.
And Roy Robertson Harris, who once upon a time was actually pretty good for the Bears, but he was the Bears' 3rd best defensive lineman. He is the best defensive lineman the Jaguars have. Their defensive backfield is who's on first, what's on second. Nobody. Trevon Walker, who was the first overall pick last year.
I've already forgotten he existed.
Just a complete no-show. Just had no impact at all. So the fact that the Jaguars are just not going to play defense, I think is going to keep the door open for Tennessee and maybe allows them to be a playoff team.
But no, good for Tennessee because he's certainly the best guy they got.
Sure.
Treylon Burks, we don't know what that is. Certainly we know what Tennessee thought it was going to be.
Remember when he showed up to camp and was like, oh yeah, by the way, I have asthma?
And they got hurt.
Yeah. Got a great start to his NFL career.
Yeah, so I'm skeptical. I do like the big tight end.
Evan Ingram? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the Jaguars.
Yeah, we've pivoted back to Titan talk. Yeah, Chigakonkwo I think is good. He really came on in the second half last year. I'm sure he probably won some people some fantasy football leagues as a waiver wire addition. I think he's good. I think Derrick Henry's still probably pretty good. They drafted Tyjae Spears, who I like a lot.
Love him.
There's some pieces. I don't know who the hell is going to block for him, and I don't have any idea what the quarterback situation is going to look like. It might just be a total mess, submarines the whole season. But again, if we learned anything from DeAndre Hopkins last year, like, you can make a passing game float if all you've got is him, because that was all the Cardinals had.
I will say this about the Chiefs' involvement here, because I've been saying from the very beginning, ever since the Cardinals cut him, I did not think his game was a fit in Kansas City, mostly because of the way the Chiefs have built their receiver core. They don't have to be smaller. MVS is not small. MVS is 6'4", but we want shifty, or we want, if you're going to be big and not super shifty, you got to be able to be physical and block. Because MVS is fast. I wouldn't call him shifty. He's fast, but he can block, and he is a willing blocker. He's going to do other things for you that make up for that. But Richie James, Rashee Rice, Sky Moore, these are guys who are going to get open. They're not going to win the jump balls very often, but they're just going to get open, and they're going to find a way to win in that regard. That's not really Hopkins' game, at least not to the same degree. That's like an asset without being the focal point, whereas the Chiefs have added a bunch of guys where that is the focal part of their game. And I really don't, not that I disagree necessarily with the reporting we got this weekend in the wake of the Hopkins deal about the Chiefs. Like, I trust that Albert Breer has good sources. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN's been doing it a long time. I trust that he has good sources. But something just smells fishy to me. Okay, so Albert Breer tweets out, as we've mentioned a few times, the Chiefs essentially gave Donovan Smith the money they had earmarked for DeAndre Hopkins after the Odell Beckham contract changed the dynamic in negotiations. The Titans got way closer to what the Ravens gave OBJ than what the Chiefs were going to. The wording there is a little interesting to me, because I think the Chiefs would always choose Donovan Smith over DeAndre Hopkins. Like, I think I understand what he means, that, when the contracts got bigger than they expected, that money went elsewhere. I think when push came to shove, they would have always rather have had Donovan Smith than DeAndre Hopkins on this team.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like a apples to apples. You're talking about the guy who's going to start left tackle for you over the guy who would have been maybe a luxury piece for your offense.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the money is probably pretty similar. I think the Chiefs would have been happy to do 1 year, $9 or $10 million for Hopkins. That obviously wasn't going to get it done. 1 year for $9 million for Donovan Smith got it done. But that same money earmarked for Hopkins, I don't think so. I think that's two very different pools of money. They could have squeezed out another 1 year, $10 million deal when the Chris Jones extension gets done.
And that brings me to this report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, where he says the Chiefs, including Andy Reid, kept in contact with DeAndre Hopkins' free agency. But with Chris Jones's extension still not done and minimal cap space, Kansas City didn't have a contract offer to compete. I do not doubt that Andy Reid and Brett Veach and the rest of the front office kept tabs on what was going on. I fully believe they made calls, they stayed in contact. Hey, let us know what else you're hearing, who else is interested, etc. Totally 100% believe that. My problem was with the second part of this report. Without a Chris Jones extension done and minimal cap space, the Chiefs did not have a contract offer to compete. Am I really supposed, because the Jones deal is getting done, right? We agree that is going to get done probably within the next, I would assume within the next 2 weeks. It might be done this afternoon. It can be done at any point because we know what the framework will look like. Am I supposed to believe that if the Chiefs had reached out to DeAndre Hopkins and DeAndre Hopkins' agent and said, hey, look, we want you. You're going to get your quarterback. You're going to get approximately the same money, and you're going to get a chance at a ring, and you'll get to play for Andy Reid. What wide receiver wouldn't want to play for Andy Reid? You're going to get all of that. You just have to wait a week, or you're going to have to miss the first week of training camp, and then you'll get your money. Am I really supposed to believe that DeAndre Hopkins said, nope, can't do it. Got to get it right now. Have to get it done ASAP. That something smells about that, and it doesn't smell pleasant. That I just have a hard time believing that they said, nope, we can't wait a week. We cannot wait for the Jones deal to get done. We have to have it right now.
No, they'd have been happy to wait for a similar deal. As Matt Verderame said, he wanted 2 years. One team was willing to give him 2 years. 2 years at $13 million outbids 1 year at about any price.
Yeah. So is this it then for the Chiefs? Is this the roster? Well, will, of the 90 guys they have signed, will 56% of these guys be the roster? Or do you feel like one of the names that is still out, I mean, it's not going to be Dalvin Cook. Someone out there, some guy who has fantasy football in his Twitter bio right now is tweeting about, the Chiefs need to get Dalvin Cook. Think of the explosives on offense. No, the Chiefs are not signing Dalvin Cook.
I have obtained exclusive Photoshop of what it might look like if free agent Kareem Hunt signed with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Man, wouldn't that be something? Honestly, though, I feel like
it would be something. I'm not sure that's the other words I'd have for it would be very nice, but it would certainly be a word that would apply.
I feel like Andy Reid and even Brett Veach would be open to bringing guys back who maybe they didn't have great endings with for the sake of winning, because they're good guys and they will win at all costs. I have a feeling once you piss off Clark Hunt, that's probably it.
Yeah, that's the bridge you can't unburn, right? I will say this, though. This is about the time last year when the Carlos Dunlap signing got done.
Okay,
so
that's a fair point.
If the Chiefs do find themselves with a little bit extra salary cap room after Chris Jones is signed, which I think that gets done before training camp starts in earnest.
I agree.
Because I don't think Chris Jones is coming to training camp without a new deal. And I think the Chiefs would like to have him there maybe a day or two, and they'll waive his fines. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're doing him a favor. Maybe they're saying, hey, yeah, you don't have to come to training camp. We'll get this thing hammered out a couple of days in. We'll give you a couple of veteran days here at the beginning of training camp. You're our best defensive player. You're our leader, one of our leaders, one of our most important guys. And we'll extend you that grace, and then we'll get this thing done. Mm-hmm. But if they are able to carve out a little more space under the salary cap, and let's say Yannick Ngakoue is willing to sign a 1-year deal for something like, well, last year it was $8 million for Dunlap. If they've got $8 million laying around, Yannick Ngakoue would be worth $8 million to me as a rotational pass rusher. I could do that. I think he's better than Mike Dana. I like Mike Dana. Yeah, but he's better than Mike Dana. So I think that would be the only place I think the Chiefs would realistically add. And they have a history of doing that, adding to the defensive line late in the game before training camp or at the early stage of training camp. So that'd be the only place I'd look. They're not going to do a running back. They're not going to do a wide receiver. That's not happening.
The one other position that I think logically would make sense without context, but makes less sense with the context of how the Chiefs have built their defensive backfield. There's a number of corners out there that I think you could argue you got a really young cornerbacks room. Would it be useful to bring in a Bradley Roby for 1 year, probably going to sign for pretty cheap, bring him in to essentially be your break glass in case of emergency, dime corner, fourth cornerback kind of role. It might even be specific dime packages when he would come in. I mean, he'd play 10% of your snaps maybe. I think you could make an argument for that, but as we've brought up before, the cornerback and really the entire defensive backfield is one spot where Brett Veach and Spags, to his credit too, have said, we can go young, we can go cheap, and we can make it work. That would lead me to believe they don't feel like they need veteran help back there. Because otherwise, I would say that would be the other spot that jumps out to me, because they're not bringing Marcus Peters back, although that would be really freaking funny. But like William Jackson, the former Steeler, is out there. I just mentioned Bradley Roby. John Johnson's been a really good safety in his career. Last played for Cleveland, also played for the Rams.
Does it seem to you like there are more quality veteran players on the free agent market right now than there have been at this point in the offseason in recent years?
I would say so, yes. Like, I'm looking right now, just from Spotrac, at the guys who are available. And, yeah, there are big names who are out there. Like Zeke Elliott's out there. The Chiefs are obviously not signing him. And he, I think, is not what he once was.
Good, as we like to say, at this point in his career.
But if a team was looking for a number 2 running back who could pass protect,
goal line option,
he's 27.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised he's out there. The defensive players, Marcus Peters. Robert Quinn's old, but Robert Quinn's been good. William Jackson, Yannick Ngakoue, who's still only 28. He feels like he could be 38 at this point. He's been a name for a long time. John Johnson, who I just mentioned. Jadeveon Clowney has baggage, but he's still available. Matt Ioannidis was with Carolina last year. He's been a good player in his career. That's just Shelby Harris is still out there. I wish my Packers had signed Shelby Harris. We need some defensive line help. Like, there's a ton of dudes who are still out there. And that's weird, right? Like, there's always a handful of guys like Carlos Dunlap, Melvin Ingram the year before that. There are guys out there, but it's odd.
Yeah, it feels like more.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because the salary cap didn't go up huge this past year.
No, it was its standard rise. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it wasn't like there was no increase. It's not like what the NBA or the NHL really, you talk about the other major salary cap sports. The NHL salary cap barely moved this past year.
Yeah.
NBA's cap didn't go up huge, and they put more restrictions on it with the second apron, which I don't have an advanced economics degree from like Wharton, so I can't really get into that with any sort of expertise. No. But no, this was a pretty standard year. It's not like not going to accuse anybody of colluding with anybody. I don't think that's happening. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's really strange to me. It feels like there are a lot of guys out there who could help teams, who could be, veteran pieces on some young teams that might have a ton of cap room, mm-hmm. or, guys that are more than camp bodies is what I'm saying. Usually you get to this point, it's a lot of camp bodies. Those guys, to me, names you've been reeling off, those are all more than camp bodies, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned.
Danny Shelton was the late ad last year as well. I know he didn't get on the field very much with the Chiefs, mm-hmm. but that kind of player is available, but surprising number of names. I'm going to give you one. We have to get to a break here. I'm going to give you one name, and I'm going to go to the defensive backfield here. Former first-round pick, the Brett Veach special. He has played in plenty of major games, including a Super Bowl, including multiple AFC championship games. He's only 27 years old. Kansas City Chiefs cornerback Eli Apple.
Send it to break, man.
I am not at all. Of all the guys I'm surprised that are still free agents, not at all surprised that guy is a free agent.
No, I mean, it's not just the GMs. What locker room are you going to bring him in where guys are going to be happy to see him?
Hey, Pat, would you be interested in bringing Eli Apple into this? Nope. You'd walk out. You would walk out of the room.
And I don't even know that he's a terrible teammate. I just think he generally seems like he'd probably be pretty unpleasant to be around. Probably. Which would not make him a very good teammate. Like, it's not like he's Ruben Rivera stealing out of anybody's locker or like fighting teammates on the sideline, anything like that. He just seems just generally insufferable.
Please shut up. Please shut up.
We're going to get showboat legend, Eli Apple.
We're going to get to some college basketball later on this hour, some more roster movement for KU. But first, we've got What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Up next, right here on 580 Sports Talk.
The power to go.
It is time for the first What is Wrong with You of the week here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to your metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, why don't you do the honors and start us off in What is Wrong with You on this Monday?
We are going to Henry County, Georgia, a traffic stop that occurred last month, but is just now being made public, where a Dodge Charger in Henry County was going 96 mile an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. Stunningly not driven by a member of the Georgia Bulldogs football team. When the officer approached the Charger, he recognized the person behind the wheel as Michael Yarbrough. Why did he recognize Michael Yarbrough? He's the chief deputy of the sheriff's department in Henry County.
Can't do that.
In video captured by the officer's dash and body camera, the officer returns to his squad car and calls another person regarding the stop. Guess who I just pulled over, the officer says to an unnamed person on the phone. The chief deputy driving a bleeping Dodge Charger, a souped-up Dodge Charger belonging to the sheriff's office. I just clocked this some bleep at 96 in a 35, he continues. Should I write him? He asked the person on the phone, as in, should I give him a ticket? When he is told that it is his stop and his decision, the officer responds, well, you know I don't care for him, so I'm going to write his ass. And the officer issued a citation to Yarbrough.
Awesome.
The chief deputy was suspended 40 hours without pay for the severity of the traffic citation. It was confirmed that Yarbrough was on duty at the time of the incident, but was not driving with his lights or sirens on. CNN has been unable to reach Yarbrough for comment.
That's awesome. Good for the guy who gave him the ticket.
2 lessons to be learned here. Number 1, don't drive 96 in a 35. That's psychotic.
Yeah, that's insane.
Absolutely.
Wildly dangerous.
As a Dodge Charger owner myself, I know that they are very tempting to drive fast. I can neither confirm or deny that I have gone a little over the speed limit in certain places in my time as a Dodge Charger owner. Never 61 miles per hour over the speed limit. That I can tell you has not happened.
You hit another car going that fast, you could kill someone very easily.
You vaporize. So that's the first lesson. Don't go 61 miles an hour over the speed limit anywhere, especially if the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. Number 2, apparently be good to your subordinates, because you never know if one of them might decide, yeah, that guy, he kind of sucks, so I'm going to write him a ticket. He's not getting out of this one. He might otherwise by virtue of being the chief deputy, but nah, I don't like him, so I'm writing him a ticket.
Nah, that's awesome. Good for that police officer who gave him the ticket. That rules. Yeah, as Mark says on YouTube, the police have to obey the law too. Yep, absolutely. Come on. I can understand feeling like, you know, I'm a big deal. I can go a little over the speed limit. If he's going even like 50, probably say, all right, man, don't do that again.
Yeah.
You cannot more than double the speed limit. Absolutely ridiculous.
Almost tripled the speed limit.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That is so dangerous. So dangerous. My story today is going to take us down to Florida, where a man has been put in jail, a man from Ocklawaha, Florida. Ocklawaha.
Sure.
He was arrested and is in jail on drug charges. Seems run-of-the-mill enough. Well, let's meet 35-year-old Stephen Mattingly, who has been charged with possession of fentanyl and drug paraphernalia after being arrested on Monday when he was pulled over on Highway 27/441 at 6 p.m. So, prime time hours here, by an officer who saw him driving a black Toyota pickup truck without a seatbelt on, according to the arrest report from the, by the way, Fruitland Park Police Department. That is a very funny name for a place. While following Mattingly before the traffic stop, the officer saw a large pile of various pieces of scrap metal extending above the bed of the truck, and on the edge, a dishwasher that was not secured and wobbled beyond the edge of the truck as the bed of the vehicle moved. The officer then pulls him over, conducts the traffic stop, and spoke to Mattingly, who told the officer he did not typically wear a seatbelt and was unaware of the shifting cargo. Just a tip, I would not admit that I break the law every time I drive.
Dang, you finally got me. I usually do this, and you never get me on it.
When asked for his driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, Mattingly said he had never been pulled over and he didn't know what to look for.
That's a great answer.
Here's a tip: your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. The report noted that Mattingly, in fact, had a lengthy driving history and previous encounters with law enforcement, including numerous offenses when he was pulled over by police.
Hey, the lying bought him some time.
Due to the discrepancy in Mattingly's statement, the officer asked if there was anything else, such as guns or drugs in the vehicle. Mattingly denied having anything of that nature, but the officer observed a container of Narcan inside the glove box, which was open. The officer asked if he consumed narcotics, and Mattingly said he got them from his doctor at a clinic. The officer then asked for consent to search the vehicle, to which Mattingly agreed, and as he got out of the vehicle, a clear glass pipe with burnt residue fell out onto the pavement. The residue later tested positive for fentanyl. At that point, Mattingly was arrested. Another tip for you: do not lie to the police. Not great. If you're going to go to jail anyway, maybe don't lie to them to compound the issue. A further search of the vehicle turned up a green glass pipe with burnt residue underneath the right panel of the bottom right steering wheel column. Additionally, a folded up piece of paper with a brown powdery substance was located inside of the pocket of the mirror above the driver's seat. That also tested positive for fentanyl as well as methamphetamine. This guy's playing all the hits. Inside of a can in one of the cup holders was also an unknown liquid containing multiple solid pieces floating inside that appeared to match the narcotics already found. This was also seized and sent off. Was he drinking lean? Was that purple drank?
I don't think so.
Mattingly was then placed
there's anything solid inside the scissor.
Yeah, that's true. He was placed under arrest and moved to the patrol car. As the officer was leaving the traffic stop to take him to jail, Mattingly said, "Hold on," because he had something, quote, up his butt.
Oh, no.
And he pulled out a tied-off bag of more fentanyl from his body cavity. Well, if you already got my first two stashes of fentanyl, might as well show you the third.
Wait a minute, man. Why did he it's all over your car.
Yep.
Why did he have some in his jail wallet?
This dude went from lying about knowing what to look for during a traffic stop to bearing everything for this police officer.
I just don't understand why he felt like he had to have some there. Like, where was he going?
Maybe he knew he was going to jail.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought, well, I ain't getting away this time.
Yeah. It's always, he had some in his car. You're always going to be in your car. And, sometimes if you're, in need of a fix, it's good to have some in your jail wallet.
Gross. Who wins today?
That was quite a story. The guy with the fentanyl in his rear. But I'm going to have to go with the cop going 31 over the speed limit and getting cited by a police officer who just didn't like him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the officer who conducted the traffic stop there. The chief deputy is obviously the one who's wrong with you. And yeah, I've got that one winning today. The other dude just loved fentanyl.
Yeah, just absolutely loved drugs.
I don't know what I'm supposed to look for during a traffic stop is very, very funny, though, by the way. That is our new winner, the speeding deputy, here in What Is Wrong With You, which, as always, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Coming up on the other side of this break, another highly touted freshman is leaving KU. What does it mean for KU in the short term? And also, is this a symptom of more things to come in college basketball? We'll discuss next on 580 Sports Talk.
Teachers are teaching.
Earlier this offseason, Kansas basketball lost one member of its highly touted freshman class. Let's phrase it that way. Brendan and Dan here with you, by the way, on 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. When Chris Johnson said, yeah, I'd like out of my national letter of intent, that was after KU had added Arterio Morris from Texas in the transfer portal. Apparently, Johnson's family said, hey, man, why did you just add a former five-star player who plays my same position and has 3 years of eligibility left? That's not great. And now he went to Texas. So essentially they swapped Arterio Morris for freshman Chris Johnson. That was tough, but, so be it. KU's added a bunch of talent. That's the game you play with the transfer portal, whatever. Then this weekend, another freshman, Marcus Adams Jr., the other Adams Jr., was apparently done with the program and posted on social media that he has left and he is asking out of his national letter of intent. And I would imagine KU is going to do so. Gary Bedore of the Kansas City Star said he texted with Bill Self, and Self said that Marcus is no longer with the program. We'll do anything else that we can do to help him find a new destination. That is what KU has always done, and I commend KU for doing that because not every program does, and that sucks.
Yeah.
I think there's two ways to view this story. There's the basketball side, like the immediate 23-24 Kansas Jayhawks basketball side, and the what's going on with KU / what's going on with college sports recruiting right now side. The basketball side, and we'll talk to Michael Swain about this tomorrow. And according to Michael over at 24/7 Sports, the summer has not been so rosy for Marcus Adams to the point where he really has struggled with the physicality and really just with the style of basketball that Kansas plays. And look, you're a young freshman. He reclassified from 2024 to 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how often that works out, period. But especially for not generational guys to move up a year. And then he flipped at the last moment, if you remember, from UCLA to KU because of KU's NIL offering. He straight up admitted that. And it didn't sound like it was going well. And to be frank, if you're 17 years old and you have to play against Kevin McCullough every day, that sounds like it would suck, okay? Yeah. I would not want to do that either. That does not sound fun at all. If your game is, I'm an offensive playmaker, and I've got a 23-year-old All-America caliber defensive player guarding me every day.
Absolutely, it has me in a box every single day in practice. Yeah, that's not fun.
And I've heard rumors that maybe there were some, not that he's a bad kid, but maybe some personality clashes with Bill Self. Things don't work out. Fine. And if he really was struggling that much, maybe it doesn't mean a whole lot for KU in the long run. And if that's the case, fine. Best of luck to him. And KU will probably be fine if he wasn't going to crack the rotation anyway this year. But this is also, the other side of this is two-pronged too. KU has lost 2 freshmen before boot camp. Even Isaac McBride. Remember Isaac McBride from a few years ago?
Yeah.
Who has since been to 9 other schools? He at least made it to boot camp before he said, nah, I ain't about this. I'm going mid-major, brother. I'm good. Well, I think he went to Arkansas, then Oral Roberts, and I think he's transferred again. This is bizarre to have 2 guys leave before August, one of whom had already moved in. Chris Johnson never even showed up to the dorms. Marcus Adams had moved in. He had been on campus working out. He had a roommate and everything, and then he decided to leave. Now, KU might be able to find a replacement, and the word is that KU's got an international player in mind who's a pretty highly regarded international recruit for this year. But it's kind of odd to see 2 freshmen leave KU before you even get to camp. That is odd. And I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, if there were issues on the court or personality issues or homesickness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this is strange.
It's one thing for a kid to get to campus and realize, man, I'm not ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ready for this level of play. Most freshmen, in fact, aren't. I shouldn't say most. More often than it used to be,
right.
Freshmen are able to contribute, especially at big-time programs where you're talking about a 4 or 5-star recruit. There are a lot more often than not, those kids are ready to play, where your 3 stars might not be. Or your young guys, especially. I mean, Marcus Adams reclassified, as you said, so he was younger than most of the incoming freshmen. But it'd be one thing to say, man, I can't hack it right this second. Well, I mean, that's what a redshirt year is for, or that's what they used to be for, right? So it makes you wonder. On the one hand, I'm sure that it was pretty evident that he maybe wasn't going to be able to cut the mustard and be a part of the 2023-24 team. But if you wanted to be at KU, if you like the vibe, if you like the teammates, like the coaches, stick out a redshirt year. It's okay to redshirt and get stronger and have that year of seasoning that maybe you should have taken at the high school or prep level, but you take it at the college level, and you don't get to play in any of the games, which is a bummer, but you get stronger and you're around the culture. And then by the time you come back and you're eligible again to play next season, you're ready to rock and roll, or a lot more ready than you would have been. But I think there's a broader around college basketball, the feeling that I got to play, and I got to play right away, and I got to play a lot right away. And less of a desire to take that redshirt year, to sit that year out. That might have benefited Marcus Adams Jr. at Kansas. And look, we don't know all the factors here. Maybe it just wasn't a vibe all around. Like maybe he didn't get along with the strength coach. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like the dorm. I got no idea. Maybe he was homesick. Lawrence far away from home. There's a million different reasons why a kid could decide, hey, this isn't the place for me. But for it to be two freshmen in the same recruiting class who decide that before boot camp gets started, that is a little bit out of character. I don't know that it's concerning necessarily, but it is out of character, and it does, I think, raise some questions about just kind of what recruiting high school players is now in this era of the transfer portal. Like how is it different, and what has changed about it to the point where this can happen at a program like Kansas?
I think basketball-wise, I should note this. KU leaves in 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks now, for their stint in Puerto Rico, their international trip for this year. Not having a full roster is unfortunate for that. Don't know what's going on with Arterio Morris and his court case back in Texas. Now you don't have another freshman in the group, so it's unfortunate to not have a full roster for that, but KU will figure it out and be fine. I do think it is interesting, though, from a larger perspective, a bigger college basketball, really college sports perspective, what recruiting is like now. There's a story over at The Athletic written by Kyle Tucker, who covers Kentucky, but also just covers college basketball in general, about the year-round recruiting calendar. And I got to pull this up, but there's a quote in there actually from Jerome Tang about what this is like. And for Tang, it's a little bit different as well, because he's only been a head coach for 1 year. He had been an assistant for so long. But he says this about the year-round recruiting schedule. Not just year-round busy work, but year-round recruiting. Quote, I mean, it's incredible. Thank God we've got a wonderful staff, and I've got an understanding wife. It used to be that June was a time we got to stay on campus and have time with our families, do vacations. Now we have recruiting in May, recruiting in June, recruiting in July. And, especially with the portal, you're recruiting 1 month before the season ends. So, yeah, something's got to be done. I don't know what to make of that last part, because I understand why a head coach says, oh, my God, this is too much. I also don't, and I've made this clear before, don't feel a ton of sympathy for head coaches because they get paid tons of money to make it happen.
They do, but that's going to burn guys out. That's going to lead to guys, like a lot more Jay Wrights who leave the profession a lot earlier than they wouldn't have normally. Like, you're going to have a lot more guys like Jay Wright who get out of there around their, late 50s, 60s, and a lot fewer Boeheim, Krzyzewski, Roy Williams types who are lifers, literal lifers in the job.
So I just don't know where I land on it, because part of me says player movement is good. You're never going back to what it was. This, in some form, will always be here, and it's good. If a situation's bad for you, or you're not playing and you only have so much time, you're fighting with a coach, you're kicked off the team, whatever, you should be able to go somewhere else. But also, losing all of your good coaches is not great. Like, if Jay Wright could have coached 10 more years.
Easily.
For sure. Roy Williams probably could have had it. Now, he's older, but he could have had a couple more years in him.
Yeah.
Coach K, I don't really know what he's doing now that he's not coaching. Roy has figured it out because he's just traveling everywhere.
Right.
He's visiting all of his former assistants and friends in the business. He's got to figure it out. But, with these guys leaving, that's not great. Like, you've brought this up before, that there's not a whole lot of old guard, like, respected elder statesmen left. Like, it's Bill Self, it's Tom Izzo.
Kelvin Sampson, an elder statesman now? Does he qualify?
Kelvin Sampson? Yeah, probably.
Is Tony Bennett's still relatively young to be an elder statesman. But yeah, you got way fewer of those guys. I think we have a texter who sums this up really well from the 785, and we appreciate this text and all your texts from the text line 785-272-9429. This text read, I'm so torn on this. I want everybody to be able to make the best decision for them. Believe if coaches can leave, players should have some freedom and flexibility too.
Yep.
But even beyond college athletics, it feels like the word commitment doesn't mean anything anymore. Call me the get off my lawn guy, but would like to see the mental toughness and willingness to fight through some stuff because you made a commitment and you signed your name on the line.
I think that's a great text, and shout out to the 785 for that. That's why, and I'll bring this back to a KU football slant for a second, and Michael Swain has written about this a bunch, and why I really appreciated how KU has, under Lance Leipold, continued to build its team. That is a sticking point for the KU coaching staff. It is, hey, if you need time to make your decision, make it. Figure your things out, talk to your family, talk to your friends, figure it out. But once you say, I am committed to Kansas, we expect you to be committed. And if you want to go somewhere else, that is fine. Don't jerk us around. And I'm sure K-State has said similar things. I just can't speak to that as directly.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's the case for KU. And I mean, look at the Dylan Edwards recruitment. I think that's pretty common all over college sports right now. We have to get to a break. We'll lead off the 5 o'clock hour with headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you up until 6. We've got some Royals baseball tonight here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Game 1 between the Royals and the Tigers from Kauffman Stadium. You'll be able to hear the game and all of the post and pregame shows right here on 580 WIBW. We'll get you ready with some 580 Sports Talk overtime at the top of the 6 o'clock hour to push your way into the Royals Radio Network. We'll hear from David Lesky of Inside the Crown and Royals Review, who spoke to Jake and Fulton on Mic'd Up earlier on today. That's coming up again, top of the 6 o'clock hour. Pregame at 6:30, first pitch at 7:10 for Royals versus Tigers tonight. But we've got plenty to get to in this 5 o'clock hour first, including a bunch of 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll preview Royals Tigers. We'll get to your texts, your comments on YouTube as well, all coming up in the next now 53 minutes. So without further ado, let's start with the National Football League. We addressed this a bit with Matt Verderame back in the first hour of the show, but today was the deadline for players on the franchise tag in the NFL to sign long-term deals beyond this season. If you did not sign one by today, well, then you have to play the year on the tag. Or alternately, you just don't sign the franchise tag, and then you are not under contract. It's the only way you can still truly hold out in the NFL is you just don't sign your franchise tag. So you don't have to show up to training camp or risk losing any time on your contract, lose a year of accrued time, etc. So this year, 6 players were given the franchise tag. 3 of them got new deals. That included Lamar Jackson, who got 5 years, $260 million. Deron Payne of the Commanders, 4 years, $90 million, defensive lineman. Just this weekend, Evan Ingram, tight end for the Jags, we'll touch on this here in a few minutes, 3 years, $41.3 million, 24 guaranteed. And 3 running backs did not get long-term deals. That includes Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Tony Pollard. So a few different pieces of information came in on all of these running backs. Adam Schefter of ESPN reported today, after it was made official that Josh Jacobs did not get a long-term deal done, that he is not expected to report to training camp, and the Raiders are not expecting to see him until later this summer, if they see him at all. Jacobs is still deciding whether or not he is willing to report and whether or not he is going to sign that franchise tag. As for Saquon Barkley, it was Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network who tweeted earlier this afternoon, and I need to go make sure I find it, says that there was no deal done between the Giants and star running back Saquon Barkley, even though talks went right down to the wire and both sides did make an effort to strike a compromise. Rappaport added that Barkley will play on the tag, but the question is, when is he going to show up? Then there is Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys, who it sounds like is going to just sign it and play. He's not going to hold out. He will at some point be reporting. Jane Slater from NFL Network said that Pollard is expected to play on the $10.1 million franchise tag. Interestingly enough, when I asked how far apart both sides were, a source tells me there wasn't an extensive discussion about a long-term deal. So you've got 3, I think, very interesting and specific scenarios here. You've got Tony Pollard, who has been technically the number 2 back in Dallas for a couple of years, even though he was better than the number 1.
Yes.
And he's awesome. He had, in his first 4 years, the number of total touches that Zeke Elliott had in his first 2 years. So he's still got fairly fresh legs. Didn't produce a lot early on, but the market's not very good. Not surprising they're not looking for anything long-term. But he pretty much sounds like he figured, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Saquon is the best offensive player that the Giants have. And they just gave Daniel Jones 4 years, $160 million, which is
$40 million a year if you didn't do the math.
On one hand, you got to have the quarterback. On the other hand, not that one. Are you sure you didn't mean to give that to the other guy? And it sounds like they were at least trying to get something done. Then you have Josh Jacobs, who, as Matt Verderame pointed out to us earlier, Dan, he would have been under contract if they just picked up his option last year.
Yeah.
But they said no.
Yeah, they didn't pick up his option. Like, famously, he played in the Hall of Fame game. The domain of third to fifth string players. And Josh Jacobs played in that game. That is what the Raiders estimated that Josh Jacobs was at around this time last year. And then he led the NFL in rushing. And then they were like, oh no.
What was it? 1,600 yards, I think he had last year. I mean, it was an incredible year. Yeah, 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Almost 5 yards an attempt. And they are now over a barrel with this. Are any of these three going to get new deals with their teams?
No. Maybe Barkley. Barkley is certainly most likely because I think the Giants do understand his value to the team. But no, I don't think. We talked about it earlier. Look at the guys who are on the free agent market still as running backs. Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott, like we've had our fun with Zeke. Like obviously that's not right now what it was when Zeke came into the league.
Do you remember his last play as a Cowboy?
Yes, snapping the ball from center and getting blasted into oblivion. The stupidest last play of a game in NFL history. Yeah. He was the center for that play.
Yeah, he was.
Final play as a Cowboy. But, like, he's a free agent. Kareem Hunt is a free agent. Dalvin Cook is a free agent. I think it was Doug Farrar, who's written for USA Today about the NFL, who made this point on Twitter earlier today. When guys that good are free agents, if somebody wants to pay you $10 million for 1 year of being a running back, you better sign your name on the line, which is dotted.
Yep.
Because that's what the running back market is. As Matt Verderame put it when we had him on in the 3 o'clock hour, the running back market is there isn't a running back market.
Get paid when you can.
Yes. So I think still something gets done with Barkley. It sort of feels like teams are using the franchise tag in a similar way that baseball teams use arbitration. Right, where in Major League Baseball, you get 3 years where you're pre-arbitration, where you are fully cost controlled, and you can only make X amount, whatever is set in the CBA, collective bargaining agreement. And then you have 3 years where you are eligible for arbitration, where a team can just offer you 3 one-year contracts for the next 3 years. And they file for a number they think you're worth. You can file for a number you think you're worth. Sometimes that gets messy, and the two sides have to go see an arbitrator and go through the arbitration process. But a lot of times there's a settlement in there at a number, and you play on that number in your 4th and your 5th and your 6th year. And it seems like the franchise tag has become that final arbitration year where you just want to have the player because it's still cost control, right? You're not going over a certain number. You know what the number is going to be. You know what it's going to count against your salary cap in football, obviously. And so you're comfortable at that number, but you don't know if you're going to be comfortable at a bigger number for this year or for any years going forward. But you have the opportunity to cost control that player with the franchise tag. And that's what it kind of feels like that the Raiders and the Cowboys and the Giants are doing here. Not that they don't think these guys are good players or even great players, but that they know they have them cost controlled for this year and are hoping that they can get a year of all-pro caliber performance, which is certainly in the realm of possibility for all three of those guys at a bargain price.
And the other thing, too, is that's not how this was supposed to be in the NFL. It was supposed to be, this is a last resort. Your last resort is the franchise tag, and you use it up until the deadline to try to get something done with your best players, with your franchise players. Washington did this the right way. And Baltimore did to a degree, too, because you're not letting Lamar Jackson walk away. But Washington was a great case because they wanted to keep Verderame. Verderame wanted to stay. They weren't getting a deal done, and they told him, we're going to tag you. We have every intent to get a deal done. This is not supposed to be a weapon. We just need a little more time. And they got it done fairly quickly after the tag was applied, if I remember correctly. He got his big payday. Everyone is feeling good. These, with the running backs, they do feel like it is a cost control, like, yeah, we're using this because we can and you can't do anything about it kind of strategy.
And what are you going to do? Not take $10 million. Like,
Right.
Josh Jacobs, I think that's the calculation that, I mean, these running backs saw what happened to Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
Where he sat out a year and he got paid, but he didn't get as much as he thought he was going to, and he was never the same player after that.
By the way, Tony Pollard, his first contract, his first 4 years in the NFL, do you know what he got paid?
Total?
The value of his rookie contract as a whatever round pick he was.
3 million, 4 million?
4 years, 3.19 million. How are you going to turn down 10? Like, you know he's playing on that tag. I saw this too, and Vance asked this question on YouTube. I know you answered it for him. Is the salary the same on the tag across the board for all players? Does it vary by team? It varies by position. So Barkley, Jacobs, and Pollard, their contract, it's all the same for them. $10.1 million. Here's an interesting fact, though. This is from Jeff Darlington of ESPN. In 2015, the salary cap was $143.3 million. It has since gone up over $100 million since then. The quarterback tag that year, 18.5. It's now 32.4. It's gone up $14 million. Wide receiver tags have gone up $7 million from 12.8 to 19.7. Running backs in 2015, their salary cap or their franchise tag number, 10.9 million. It has gone down.
Yeah, 10.1.
10.1. Every other position is going up. The cap itself has gone up $100 million, and the franchise tag for running backs is less.
And don't think the players themselves hadn't noticed. We mentioned Jonathan Taylor responded to the news that none of those three running backs were getting a long-term deal by simply tweeting, wow. Saquon Barkley tweeted, it is what it is. Earlier today, just a few minutes ago, NFL Draft Scout on Twitter, that's Matt Miller. He goes by @NFL Draft Scout on Twitter. And he tweeted essentially what we were saying, like this is now sort of the status quo. Draft a running back, play the running back. If he's good, franchise the running back once, and then draft a running back. This drew the attention of Twitter user @KingHenry_2, who you may better know as Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry. And he responded, at this point, just take the running back position out the game then. The ones that want to be great and work as hard as they can to give their all to an organization just seems like it don't even matter. I'm with every running back that's fighting to get what they deserve.
I get it. And I get why Derrick Henry is saying that because his time is ticking in Tennessee. I get why Jonathan Taylor's thinking it because you know what Jonathan Taylor is this year in the final year of his contract. I get it. Here's the problem with just take the running back out of the game, though. Who is the second best player for Kansas football next season?
Devin Neal.
Who is the best player for Kansas State football this past season? The past two, you could argue the past 3 seasons.
Deuce Vaughn.
Heisman Trophy winners are still running backs. Not as often as quarterbacks, but it's happened. Go lower. Go to, here's the name for you. Shawnee Heights High School, just out in Tecumseh, 20-minute drive from where we are right now. Who is their best offensive player last year?
The running back.
Alan Bowman, who was awesome for them. 1,000-yard rusher last year for Shawnee Heights. Topeka High, right here in the heart of the city. Best players in recent years. Tylen Alejos, Kai Thomas, Mike McCoy.
Jaquez
Barksdale. Running backs. Every level. Pop Warner. You know who the best kid on every Pop Warner team is?
They put him at running back.
The running back, because you know what you do? Give it to the quarterback, who's the coach's kid. Give it to the running back, and he's going to go make something happen.
Yeah.
Every level, and it diminishes the higher you get because quarterbacks can throw the older you get. But the running back is still a superstar. The running back is a big deal. Saquon Barkley was untouchable in college.
Yeah.
He was one of the biggest names in college football. You can't take it out because at every other level of football, it's still hugely important.
And it's
then the money gets involved.
And it's still pretty important when you get to the NFL, too.
Sure.
But a lot of guys can do that job,
is
what it turns out, is that there are a lot of young football players who run a 4.3 to a 4.5, and they're big and strong, and they're shifty, and they train their tails off, and they work extremely hard. Like, I get what Derrick Henry is saying. Sure. I understand his frustration. I don't know if a position can unionize. I don't know if the NFLPA allows for running backs to unionize, but like I understand what he's saying. But at the same time, don't diminish the hard work and the contributions of guys who are on their rookie deals or aren't making, or on, 1-year deals. Like Isaiah Pacheco, I don't think is any less hard a worker than Saquon Barkley, just because Barkley's in line for a bigger paycheck right now.
Man,
it's just it's a weird place for the league to be, and it's a weird place for those players to be, because they always had the shortest average careers anyhow, running backs.
And I mean, if you want to look at it from a different perspective, it's supply and demand laws, right? Like, there's a huge supply because every college team still use it, unless you're coached by a Leach disciple, you still heavily use a running back. So there's tons of these guys coming up every year, and teams don't use them as frequently.
Matt Miller is continuing to get dunked on in the quote tweets by active NFL running backs. Here's Twitter user @Austin Eckler, who you may better know as Los Angeles Chargers starting running back Austin Eckler,
who has been very vocal this offseason.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys to say, hey, man, this is
messed up.
This is kind of hinky. I don't like this. Austin Eckler on Twitter 6 minutes ago. This is the kind of trash that has artificially devalued one of the most important positions in the game. Everyone knows it's tough to win without a top running back, and yet they act like we are discardable widgets. I support any running back doing whatever it takes to get his bag. Here's the thing, though. Everyone knows it's tough to win without a top running back. And then we go back and we look at the last 10 Super Bowls. What was the leading rusher for each of those teams getting paid?
Nothing.
Peanuts.
The most expensive one, I believe, was, let me look it up. Wasn't it Percy Harvin?
Yes.
With the Seahawks, made $2.5 million that year.
Yes.
He wasn't even a running back.
Yeah, leading rusher in the game, in the Super Bowl. Percy Harvin led the Seahawks in rushing when they won Super Bowl 48.
Damian Williams didn't make all that much in 19. Isaiah Pacheco made nothing last year.
Rookie 7th round pick. Yeah, 12, 15 hour plus tips.
Rams had 14 running backs. It sucks. And I feel for them. I do.
Yeah.
Because it sucks to have everyone tell you your position doesn't matter and it's not valuable. But what's the league supposed to do?
Yeah, and GMs and owners don't owe you money out of the goodness of their hearts. That's never been how it worked. So I don't know. I don't know what the happy medium is. I don't know what the conclusion of this looks like that is in concert with how the league values players, but also that is a reasonable outcome for running backs. I don't know if you got to bump the franchise tag up, but then the guys won't get tagged.
Right.
And they'll just sit in the free agent market like Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is a good football player.
4 straight 1,100-yard seasons.
He'd make at least half the teams in the NFL better, if not more than that.
Yeah. Stud player. Really is.
Can't get a sniff.
By the way, one last franchise tag thought. Evan Ingram, 3-year deal with the Jaguars. He signed yesterday, or is going to sign. It was announced yesterday. $41.3 million. 24, that's guaranteed. So that'll pay out over the first 2 years. I love that for Evan Ingram. Doug Peterson might be the best tight end coach in the NFL. Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, Dallas Goedert early in his career, and Evan Ingram had a huge rejuvenation this past season after leaving the Giants. I like that. That Jacksonville offense is awesome. They should put up 30 points a game with the kind of talent they have.
First headline for me from the sports weekend here in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We may have seen a changing in the guard in men's tennis at Wimbledon over the weekend when 20-year-old Carlos Alcaraz defeated Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon men's final in 5 sets. It's the second major championship for the 20-year-old Spaniard, defeating Djokovic, who had won the last 4 Wimbledon titles. It has long been the case that men's tennis has been ruled by, I think you would call it the game's holy trinity, and it's not that much of an exaggeration. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic. Federer is retired. Nadal is on his way to retirement. Djokovic still very much in his prime, or at least in his late prime. Yeah. But we have been wondering who's going to knock down the door and regularly start to win majors, because that has not happened. I think it's 72 of the last 84 majors have been won by either Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic. And there's only 2 or 3 other men's players who've won multiple majors in that time span.
Insane.
Well, now one of them is 20 years old, and he's really, really good. And this may have been a major changing of the guard in men's tennis over the weekend.
Great match too. I only caught the highlights. I'm not really into tennis. I follow it because I want to know what's going on. But
high-level tennis is really, really exciting to watch. It can be exhilarating and also take a very long time.
Yeah, you've got 5 hours to kill watching a match. Not that they're all that long, but he has been really exploding recently, and you could tell just watching the highlights of that match on Sunday morning. Djokovic looked perplexed almost. Like, damn, I cannot solve this, which is never him. He is more robotic, I think, in his tennis than Nadal, and I think even more so than Federer.
Right.
And it's just very Brady-like. Like, it's just everything is right. Everything is proper. It's in the right place. The timing is always right. And he just could not solve it.
And also, he's a giant, hits the ball stupid hard.
Yes.
Now everybody is. Like, everybody's that big and hits the ball that hard. And Alcaraz might have that computer brain in him, too, and be able to solve those problems. He won the U.S. Open last year, and now he's got Wimbledon, so he's got 2 majors. And we'll see where it goes from here for the young man. But exciting to think that there might be a new face. Might be a new face of men's tennis.
Also very funny when he said, when I was born, you were already winning tournaments. I'm sure that made Novak Djokovic feel great. I think they're 16 years apart, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, born in 2003. How about that? The first round pick of the NHL, the first overall pick in the NHL draft, Connor Bedard, signed his contract with the Blackhawks today.
18 years old.
His 18th birthday. I saw the Blackhawks tweeted out a graphic of things that happened on this day or around this day when Connor Bedard was born in 2005. It's a lot to handle if you don't love feeling like you're getting old. That included, and I've got to go find this here. Okay, I can't find the tweet, but it was essentially like Tiger Woods just won his 10th major or something. Carlos Zambrano had a shutout for the Chicago Cubs. Like, it just all this old stuff. And even made me feel quite old. Final headline for me this afternoon. We know the final stage of the punishment for the Tennessee Volunteers football program. All 11 of their wins from 2019 through 2020 have been vacated as a part of their punishment from the NCAA. This is stupid. Everybody knows the games happened. There is video. We know that they happened, but this is the final stage. We told you last week about the other punishments that Tennessee is facing, including an $8 million fine and total fines up to $13 million related to the case, the largest ever levied in an NCAA infractions case. A bunch of penalties to coaches, including Jeremy Pruitt, who got a 6-year show cause penalty. Tons of stuff going on. And that is the final step for Tennessee. But as we joked about on Friday, if you're a Tennessee fan, you're probably thrilled that you don't have any memories now of the Jeremy Pruitt era, because it was very bleak and very bad.
Yeah, you can memory hole it entirely and say it never happened because they don't have any of those wins. It is a toothless punishment. You can't take away stuff that we all saw happen, like putting asterisks by things or vacating things. Like, I mean, you take the trophy away or a banner down or whatever it is, but like I've always thought that was a pretty lame punishment for whatever the infraction might have been. I got 2 more quick headlines to get to here in a 5-8 Sports Talk headline. Number 1, this from college football. Did you know that the Red River let's try this again. Did you know that the Red River rivalry football game between Oklahoma and Texas was not called that for the last 9 years?
I did, only because I also knew that they've been calling it the border showdown between KU and Mizzou, and I was told Red River is the same way, and it's dumb.
So they've gotten away from Red River Shootout. It was rebranded in 2005 to dissociate from a name synonymous with gun violence. That's from the ESPN article I'm reading directly. AT&T sponsored the game. It was the corporate sponsor game for a while. And then in 2014, it was renamed the AT&T Red River Showdown. I have no memory of this. Either the corporate tie-in or the fact that it was the Red River Showdown. Anyway, it's not the Red River Showdown anymore. You don't need to learn a new name for the football game between Texas and Oklahoma. It's back to being the Red River rivalry and has a new corporate partner as well, Allstate. It is the Allstate Red River rivalry. Unless Allstate is paying you personally, you don't have to call it that.
Exactly why it is the Red River Shootout.
In fact, you can keep calling it the Red River Shootout. I know I have for many years. Anyhow, one other quick headline I wanted to get in: the NBA's Summer League Championship takes place tonight between the Houston Rockets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's not really what's important. The NBA released their first and second team Summer League performers. Player of the league, MVP of the league, is Houston's Cam Whitmore, former Villanova standout, ended up dropping to the 20th overall pick due to some injury concerns. Jalen Wilson on the second team.
Yeah.
All summer league, averaged 17 a game for the Brooklyn Nets. So tip of the cap to the former Jayhawk.
Yeah, he had a really good couple of weeks. I think Brooklyn's really going to like him as a piece. I don't know if he's going to be a long-term starter, but I think he'll be around in the league for quite a long time. Let's get to a break. We got plenty more 580 Sports Talk to go, including a little bit later on. We'll preview Royals Tigers. All that and more is coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Don't miss the Big Iron Auction this week, July.
Brendan and Dan joining you. Brendan and Dan. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied a bunch here. Put your name and a different word together there. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. Thanks for hanging out with us midway through this 5 o'clock hour. A couple football notes from various levels of football here. Number one, from the NFL. We've talked a lot of NFL today. Current NFL running backs are still dunking on Matt Miller from ESPN. And is he just at ESPN now?
I think so.
I know for a long time he was at Bleacher Report. He was doing his own thing for a while. Yeah, he's just at ESPN. Jonathan Taylor has jumped into the mix and said, number one, if you're good enough, they'll find you. Number two, if you work hard enough, you'll succeed. If you succeed, then three, you boost the organization, and then doesn't matter, you're a running back. Trying to make fun of the cadence of Matt Miller. Yeah, he is just getting destroyed by all these current NFL running backs out there. Secondly, wanted to get to a couple notes from SEC Media Days, the start of Media Days. Number one, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, said next year they're moving the Media Days to Dallas, the Omni Hotel in Dallas. So they're moving them out of the Deep South, and they're headed from Birmingham, I believe is where they are right now.
Yeah, I think that's, or Hoover, might be somewhere in Alabama.
I know Hoover's where they do the baseball tournament.
Uh-huh.
Is that where they do media day? I don't know. It's in Alabama one way or the other. They're moving it to Dallas. That is very funny. I saw someone on Twitter.
Nashville. They're in Nashville. This year.
Nashville. There you go. You're right.
This year they're in Nashville. Long time they were in Alabama.
That's
this
right.
year they're in Nashville.
And it was stated that they are going to be hosting them in the Longhorn State. I saw that on Twitter. You can imagine Texas A&M fans were their typical selves and were not very happy about that. Speaking of Texas A&M, this is a question I already know the answer to. Did you see Jimbo Fisher's comments about his new offensive coordinator, Bobby Petrino?
Sure did.
Bobby Petrino, known bad guy. Jimbo Fisher, not especially popular at the moment anyway, or either. He was asked today about whether or not Bobby Petrino, his new OC, is going to call plays. Jimbo said, quote, "I'm not going to get into that. Bobby was hired for a reason. Tremendous guy, tremendous football mind. Hopefully he'll call the game and have suggestions." I am giving it till October 15th before Bobby Petrino is fired. Because they play to open up their conference schedule. Auburn, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, bye week. I do not think that pairing makes it through the bye week.
Devin A-Chain's not walking through that door either.
Nope.
Because he was their whole offense last year.
Entire offense. I don't even know, who is the star for Texas A&M right now?
That's an awesome question. I couldn't tell you that who's going to play quarterback for them if you gave me 100 guesses.
Man, that room is not good. Connor Wiegman, remember him? He played briefly last year. Wasn't very good.
Uh-huh.
He's going to battle with Max Johnson.
I do remember him, I think.
From LSU.
Yeah, LSU.
Brad
right.
Johnson's kid. Here's the problem with Max Johnson. He's not as good as his dad. Or even remotely close to it. They do have Muhsin Muhammad's kid on roster.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. I do not know any of these other guys.
I feel that much more ancient knowing that Muhsin Muhammad's son is playing college football. So Jimbo Fisher's whole thing was offensive genius. That's why he got to be that's how he got to be a head coach in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Texas A&M gave him, what was it? 10 years?
10 years, 90 million or whatever it was. Just a sickening amount of money for him.
With a preposterous buyout that no one can afford. And here's how it's going for him. He had to hire Bobby Petrino to try and get that offense right. And if they're already talking well, hopefully he'll call the game. I think he can do that. They're going to fight.
I'm fine with that.
They're going to fight. Like Buddy Ryan and Kevin Gilbride on the sideline. They're going to fight.
I'm cool with it.
I am too.
That's going to be great content.
I can't wait for them to swing on each other on the SEC network. Be on my third screen. They're losing by 10 to Auburn, and Jimbo gets mad that Bobby Petrino calls levels for the 15th straight pass play, and then they swing on each other.
I will note this. We were joking 2 weeks ago now about Texas's coaching staff and how very funny it is that they have Blake Gideon on staff. Yeah. Oklahoma has DeMarco Murray as their running backs coach. Texas A&M's coaching staff is by not light years, by universes, the most unlikable coaching staff in America. Jimbo Fisher, to a lot of people, not very likable. Do you know who his defensive coordinator is?
Is it DJ Durkin?
It is DJ Durkin, who, let's never forget, allowed a kid to die on his watch at practice.
Right. Yeah. It's too glib to say that he killed a kid. Jordan McNair died because DJ Durkin didn't care enough to
take care of his players. Yeah. The blood is on his hands, and I do not have any shame in saying that. Offensive coordinator, again, noted bad guy, Bobby Petrino. Can you guess who the offensive line coach for Texas A&M is?
Pol Pot.
I'll give you a hint. Guys being dudes.
Oh.
It is Steve Adazio. The entire staff might fight. It's not just going to be Jimbo and Petrino. They're all going to fight.
What's better than this?
Just an exceptionally unlikable staff. And they're all going to fight. And they all probably have gigantic buyouts because the boosters for Texas A&M are insane.
Wow, that's really funny.
Wildly unlikable staff. Last thing I wanted to get to from a third level of football here. Did you see the big pro football in Kansas City news today?
Yes. Indoor football coming back.
It is coming back. Kansas City is one of 4 teams, one of 4 cities that is going to have a team in the newest iteration of indoor football in Kansas City. And they're going to play at Muni. They're going to play at Municipal Auditorium. How about that? Our pal Matt Derrick wrote about it. We'll talk to Matt on Friday. We'll ask him about this. Christian Okoye is deeply involved in the league. The commissioner is Tim Brown.
Yes. That Tim Brown.
Yes, that one. Yes. So Christian Okoye is one of the owners of the new Kansas City team. They're the Kansas City Goats. And the logo is a goat with a bowler hat on. Or is it as much a bowler hat as it is a fedora? It's it's more fedora-like. It looks like a mobster.
The other cities in this league.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Kansas City is in this league with Duluth, Minnesota, who has yet to select a mascot for their team. The Ozarks Lunkers from Springfield, Missouri.
Love that.
And operating out of Waterloo, Iowa, and I swear on my life, I'm not making this up, the Waterloo Woo. W-O-O.
Ronnie Woo Woo, your thoughts?
The Woo. Meet the Woo. They got to play the Pop Smoke song when they come out of the tunnel, I bet.
A 4-team football league is very funny. And I don't get it, to be honest with you. Like, how do you end up in Kansas City and then all these very small cities?
Okay, so the mascot is a wolf with a mullet wearing a robe. This is a Ric Flair thing. I'm actually all in on the Woo now.
Really? Okay.
I think I might be all in on the Woo.
The Waterloo Woo. Waterloo unveils the Woo. Okay, yeah, no, this is very Ric Flair-y. He's got the robe.
The Waterloo team chose their name based on the city's history as both a railroad town, woo like the noise from a train whistle, and a wrestling town, Ric Flair's signature woo.
Man, that train thing is a stretch.
Tavis Hall is the executive director of Experience Waterloo, and he told SEScoops.com.
It's a wrestling website.
Part of that story of who we are is based on the railroad, so there's that tie. This name has a tie to our community, and we also like wrestling around here. You probably aren't getting it quite yet, but we also like wrestling around here. Not just wrestling, but we also like wrestling. Depending on where your grandma is from, it's wrestling or wrestling. The NWA was formed in Waterloo in 1948. Okay, I'm all the way in.
Yeah, I think I'm in on the Woo.
All the way in.
Think I'm in on the Woo.
It needed like 16 more O's, and then I think I would have gotten it.
Woo!
Yeah, it can't just be the Woo.
We need the wolf to be chopping. We need a backhand chop instead of holding the football.
The
Steer
wolf,
all the way into it.
The wolf is both styling and profiling.
It is going to be very funny to watch a football game at Municipal Auditorium. I'm not opposed to this, by the way.
Yeah, no, we're like mildly poking fun, but I'm all in on indoor football. I enjoy indoor football very much.
Yeah, this is wow, this is wild. I'm excited. More football, good. Do we know when they're going to play?
That is a great question. The league intends to launch from June to August 2024. So we're looking at a year from now.
This is per Matt Derrick. The Arena League, not the AFL Arena League, but this Arena League, will have 15 player rosters with 6 players on each team. So guys are expected to play 2 ways. They're playing professional 6-man football.
Quick facts from the Arena League.football, which is their official website.
Nice.
Play on a 50-yard field, faster paced games, quick play clock, no huddles. 15-man rosters with players who play both offense and defense. Younger athletes who can think quick and are able to adapt. Fan input is welcome and encouraged.
So is this actually like high school? Younger athletes? That's very funny. We do not know who else is on the board of advisors. They will be announced soon. The only leadership we know of right now is Tim Brown.
The Ozarks Lunkers have their mascot's a fish wearing a helmet jumping out of the water.
Yeah, that rules.
Yeah, it's really sick, actually. It's a cool logo.
I like the logo. It's kind of fun for the Kansas City Goats. I wish they had done something more extreme. Yeah, I need the Ozark Lunker on a shirt.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
It looks like a minor league baseball logo.
I think I'm in, man. I think I'm in on the Arena League, the AL.
The AL.F. We'll call games. Hit us up, Kansas City Goats. We'll stop in.
Absolutely.
We'll be your commentary team. Be very happy to do that. We've got to get to a break. Royals Tigers preview coming up next on 580 Sports Talk.
At Calhoun.
Coming up at 7:10, that's when first pitch is set for. Pregame will begin at 6:30. We've got Royals baseball on our airwaves tonight here on 580 WIBW. Royals versus Tigers. Good vibes after yesterday. It'll be Matt Manning for the Tigers against Jordan Lyles for the Royals.
And there go the good vibes.
We saw on Friday they had not yet updated the schedule after the Friday night game got banged, and Jordan Lyles was still set to start on Sunday. Then he did get pushed back. Great. And he made this, or he's going to make the start today. Maybe that was the whole plan. And now you can put him against a really bad team and he can luck into a win. Maybe.
That'd be nice. A couple of Royals notes today. It does sound, this is Ann Rogers from MLB.com reporting, does sound like Salvador Perez is going to be able to avoid the injured list. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, but not in the lineup tonight, but he will get a few days rest. And for now, the plan is he will not need an injury list stint. Current veteran on the injury list, Zach Greinke, he is tracking towards a Thursday return, tentatively scheduled to start Thursday for the Royals against the Tigers. And the Royals are also hoping to have Edward Olivares back in their lineup at some point this week as well. He is not obviously in the lineup tonight, but the lineup looks like this. It's Kyle Isbell, Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez to start things off. Melendez in right, Isbell in center. Freddie Fermin hitting cleanup, followed by first baseman Nick Pratto, and Drew Waters getting a half day off. He's the DH. Michael Massey's at second. Nicky Lopez is at third. Samad Taylor in left field backing Jordan Lyles. And a listener points out on the text line from the 785 that this Royals lineup is so young that if you added Javier Baez to it, you'd still have nearly 2,000 fewer plate appearances than Miguel Cabrera just by himself.
Holy cow. What a great poll.
That might be that's how old Miguel Cabrera is too.
Yeah, that's true. A couple of notes here. I get giving Drew Waters the half day off because he's been playing a lot. It does feel unfortunate to not have him in the field, though, because you're not a very good fielding team, but he is a good fielder.
Yeah, I would have probably wanted to DH Melendez and play Waters in right field. But yeah, if you're giving a guy a half day off, that's how it usually goes.
The other thing, too, wanted to give a quick update on Freddie Fermin because we were talking about him a while back and how he's been actually really good as a backup catcher. Your latest update, he's hitting 257 for the year, doesn't really walk. He's got 7 walks on the season and 113 plate appearances. OPS of 732. His OPS plus smack dab at 100. League average OPS plus.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have expected that from Freddie Fermin coming into the year. That's for sure.
Hey, I'll take it. I'm totally content with that. If you can get a backup catcher to be a league average batter, you've got one of the best backup catchers in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, generally backup catchers are good at only one thing. Like you'd like your starting catcher to be able to hit and field. Your backup usually can only do one. You usually have your good glove, no hit backups, or you have your good hit, no glove backups. Matt Lucroy was a great example.
Oh, yeah.
There have been guys like that over the course of history. Then you have the guys who, like Martín Maldonado's, started a lot of games in his career, but he's classic good glove, no bat catcher. And then you have the third kind, which is a hail fellow, well met backup catcher. Drew Butera was apparently that guy for a really long time. The guy who doesn't really do anything well, but they're a good teammate and catchers like throwing to him. Jeff Mathis. That's the Jeff Mathis category.
Yeah.
Where you don't do anything well, but you can catch a decent game. And I guess that's not fair to Mathis's defense. He was pretty good behind the plate. He couldn't hit a lick.
Was Kurt Suzuki too good to fall in that category?
Kurt Suzuki would have been good bat, no glove by the end.
Yeah, he did end up with, in fact, between 17 and 20, he had 4 straight years as an above average hitter.
Yeah.
So, okay. Man, he played forever.
He
16 years as a catcher. That's pretty wild. Again, Royals baseball coming up tonight. Pregame at 6:30. First pitch at 7:10 on the Royals Radio Network. We'll get you set up for that with a little 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Right now, we've got to get to one final break. We'll pay the bills, come back, finish things up with the final word.
You hear the
confusion. You better wrap it up.
Wrapping up a busy Monday of 580 Sports Talk with the final word, Dan.
Happy 60th birthday to my dad. My dad turned 60 today, and he is to credit or blame, I guess, depending on how you feel about me, for me making this a career. My love of sports, my love of baseball in particular, all owed to my dad. I become more and more like him every day as I age, and I'm not that embarrassed by that, but certainly can feel that, and I hope that I can measure up to his standard and be the kind of guy that he is. And if I'm fortunate to have kids, I hope I can be the kind of father that he was and is. So happy birthday, Dad. If you're listening, if you're not, you'll catch the podcast.
Happy birthday to Mr. Lucero. That is awesome. Very, very sweet. Final word for me today, the DeAndre Hopkins free agency saga. It has finally come to a close. The Titans seem like a normal fit. They also gave him the most money, which made that an obvious fit. And despite plenty of reports from credible sources out there, I'm still pretty skeptical of the Chiefs' actual interest in paying DeAndre Hopkins any amount of money. And if you're telling me that he wouldn't have waited for an extra week while the Chris Jones deal gets finalized and he had to have something right now, I'm calling BS on that one. Kind of hard for me to believe that argument. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. Michael Swain will join us to get to the latest on some KU basketball roster movement and the latest on KU football recruiting as the summer continues. We'll talk more about the Chiefs. We'll get to some Royals. All that coming up tomorrow. Don't forget to check out the podcast version of the show over at our website, 580wibw.com. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This has been 580 Sports Talk. We've got overtime next, followed by Royals baseball.